Y'all going crazy with the gifts. God damn. I suppose we should get started. Sup, y'all? Happy Wednesday, right? Yeah, it's don't have my watch on because I forgot to charge it last night. But happy Wednesday, nerds. Let's see what we have missed. We got Ever here starting us off strong today with the Prime. Strax with the 21 month straight, 33 total. Dogpaw Hat here, 34 months. Emily throwing us the 5 bomb to get us started with the gifts. NMG Twitch here, 22 months in. Throwing 10 gifts on top of it, too. Addy about to hit the 30-month mark. Crazy. Thank you all for coming through. It'll be a shorter stream because I have so much stuff going on in the city with both the Stripe sessions and config happening at the same time. But we'll get out the stuff that we have to today. Obviously, the windsurf is worth how much? I want to cover the Figma is a vibe coder now. I don't know how much the Stripe stuff is worth talking about just yet. Kind of want to wait till I can actually use it. Ooh, this looks huge. Hacker Noon has my... That's funny. Oh, compile hints. Oh, the GSAP stuff's actually huge. This should sneak in. Compile hints. This one line can make JS 10x faster. What's the other thing in here? Oh yeah, GSAP. GSAP is free now. So much for there isn't that much news. Okay, label, priority, label, priority, label, mid priority. Don't say config too often, lol. Well, I think the 0.7%. If the 0.7% is them doing merchant of record, I'm okay with it. If it's not, then it's bullshit. Popular tax collection platforms. What the fuck? They're not doing MOR? That's weird. T has made it. Oh, hey, Andres. How you doing, man? Stripe doesn't know what developers are. Or sorry, not Stripe, but PayPal doesn't know what developers are. Stripe's solid. PayPal doesn't give a fuck about devs. New sync engine's unlikely to be talked about too much today. I want to wait till it's like fully shipped. I can show it off a little bit. I'll almost certainly be showing it off a little bit. I don't invest in banks. I invest in things that I like understand the space for. Okay, let me go to drop the announcement post. Everyone, we are live talking about the Windsurf acquisition. Cool. Reds. Yeah, all things I can take a look at later. Oh, wrong. Here we are. Sec to check. Cool. Okay, I'll go through these quick. Categories for history, kind of doing this in the near future. 2 could display previous version of chats. I'm surprised we don't get this ask more. I don't like that feature. If I'm re-rolling, I'm re-rolling. If you want to keep the old history, just fork. We'll see though. Rendering markdown in the input. Claude's the only one that does that, and it doesn't do a very good job at it. And could select the model automatically in the future for sure. We'll have temporary chats very soon. I just need to like finish the current arc of the shit that we're shipping. WYSIWYG editing sucks. That's why it's not a thing. I really don't want to do it because it'll make life significantly harder and has a high chance of making the app slower. I hate WYSIWYG in editors, or in especially like chat like inputs. Like if I'm typing here, like we'll get a little bit of it. Like this is as far as I would want to go, where it still shows the markdown, but then does a bit of the what's going to happen after. But even this, like this is new. Discord didn't do that before, and I'm still iffy on it. Obsidian's a text editor. Oh yeah, I did see this. I'll throw that in the list. Yeah, isn't actually hurting jobs. I'll throw that in. I want to grab my poll results. Do I even have LinkedIn signed in on here? I do. Quite a default state. It just took forever to load in. Okay, we got that one. And then up over to posts. Cool. Surf, OpenAI, 3 bill. Nice. Their friendly alternative to Stripe, there isn't one. Sorry. Okay, I think I have everything we need for this one. Let me go start recording on the camera. We'll do 1930. How's having gum? Helps with the spit and the annoying sounds a voice can make. Will help a lot with the recording. I tend to do that before streaming every time. Thank you guys. Sorry. Look, my job is hard, okay? I don't even know when I hit the mute. Let me thank everybody. Thank you, Leah, for 23 months. Followaway for the 3 months of support. Happy you can sneak in. Cyrus here, 6 months in now. Happy that you appreciate the work I do harassing companies. We got to Clev here, 3 months in. Love Pseudo, 8 months in. Thank you all for the support. I also had one other idea for a piece of content. Where is my... Okay, it's up here. My problems with every AI provider. Cool. I think I'll do a whole thing for the payment shakeup in general. Stripe, MOR, Polar, going hard. Clerk adds payments. Cool. We got plenty to talk about now. So much for a slow day. Goddamn. I do this to myself every time. Yeah, the fall of Lemon Squeezy. I don't know enough about what exactly has happened there. What I do know is the CEO of Lemon Squeezy is the one driving a lot of the necessary change at Stripe right now. Prime did a video on Prisma. Not sure what you're talking about. This was over a year ago. What is going on with the Fiverr CEO? I've been doing diagrams, man. Okay, we need to get started with the windsurf stuff. Let's do it. We're gonna try a weird thing. I'm gonna use Excalidraw in Chrome just so that I have a better command tab target for it. I just want a different thing I can command tab to for it. I hate losing the vertical real estate, though. I knew this would happen. I wish there was a way to hide the top bar in Chrome without going into the full screen mode. Because once you go into the full screen mode, leaving it does the slide thing, and I hate it so much. So much. Ugh. Yeah. Nothing I can do about that, sadly. More Mac issue than Chrome issue. Chrome could absolutely enable us to hide more of the UI without going into the full screen mode. The other full screen in the Chrome menu is the same full screen. I'm just gonna keep it all in Excalibur. Or in Arc or Zen. Third option. Okay. And now I can still access chat. Let's get started with the video. Okay. I think we're ready to get started. Turns out VS Code forks are worth a lot more than any of us thought. I didn't think this is the path we were going to go down, where an editor like Windsurf would be worth over $3 billion in acquisition, but this is a weird time that we're in. For those who aren't caught up, there's been a surge of AI, or for those who haven't been keeping up, there's been a surge of these AI editors that are based on VS Code, which is the open source editor built by Microsoft and GitHub. VS Code is a phenomenal platform for... VS Code is a surprisingly extensible platform for building an editor with. It's all web-based, but a lot of the core primitives are actually really performant. And many of the UIs that we see for code editing in the browser are based on Monaco.js, which is the actual editor view that a lot of these things are using, including VS Code itself to an extent. It's the graph of how all of these things relate is a little bit chaotic. I'm going to do my best to break it down with you guys, as well as why Windsurf and Cursor exist, both of which are very well-funded, VC-backed... retake on that bit. I do my best to break down the landscape of all of this, why Windsurf in particular was acquired, why Cursor exists in the first place, and how we got here. But unlike Windsurf, nobody's paying me $3 billion, so we gotta quickly make ends meet with a sponsor. We'll be right back. Okay, so why buy Windsurf? We'll start first with VS Code. VS Code has an interesting history. I've covered it a bit in the past in my weird VS Code lawsuits and Microsoft Fights Back videos, but the TLDR is that Microsoft wanted to make a more extensible, lighter weight editor for people who weren't deep in the .NET ecosystem. And VS Code was built to make life easier for those people. It was a surprisingly good editor. It quickly usurped Atom, which was the editor that Electron was originally built to make, and it quickly, very quickly, became the standard editor. Let's see if I can find a chart. VS Code has very quickly become the most popular IDE in the world, by quite a bit. It has over half of the people responding in Stack Overflow, for example. When I go to an office, it's 90%. Obviously, there's still people in things like Vim. Obviously, Java heads are going to be deep in JetBrains. And of course, the C# people largely are going to be in the traditional ecosystem of Visual Studio, not going all the way to VS Code. iOS and Android have their own chaotic ecosystems. But general developers, like the average person writing code for a living, there's a very high chance VS Code is the editor that they're using. Also, unlike almost everything else in this list, VS Code is open source. Vim kind of is. NeoVim's taken over and is much more extensible. But things like Sublime Text, IntelliJ, and Visual Studio, nope. Those are very closed source things. So it's pretty cool, and I hope we can agree it's nuts that the most popular editor in the world right now is truly open source. Like, that's a really cool thing. VS Code, I'll make the argument, biggest open source IDE of all time. But there's a risk when you go open source. Others can use that source for other things. Microsoft was trying to curb this by making VS Code very extensible. So VS Code extensions could do a lot. One of the things they could do is a little thing called Copilot. Copilot started as an innovation within the GitHub, what was it called? The Office of the CTO, I think was the term. It was like the GitHub labs where they would experiment with new things. Copilot was the first autocomplete for your IDE. And to be clear, this isn't like autocomplete like with TypeScript. This is autocomplete like guessing what most likely is going to come next based on what you've written. None of the fancy features we're all used to today, but at the very least, I could write a comment that's like, if I'm writing code, like sorts list from latest to oldest. And then I write function sorts or sort list items, item array, open bracket, and it would from here be able to somewhat accurately autocomplete the rest of this function. I have a video from way back when Copilot first dropped because I was skeptical as hell because I was like, I have TypeScript, it's going to autocomplete well enough. And then I used it, got a little used to it. Then Advent of Code started, and I got my first ever top 100 in the world on it because I wrote the name of the function and it autocompleted a specific like type of sort function for a data structure. I don't remember what it was, but I remember like, oh, I understand now. It's not that this is smarter than me. It's not this will solve problems I wouldn't have solved. It's that it can carry me through the annoying parts I don't feel like typing or like recalling. So Copilot kind of took the world by storm. It fundamentally changed how Microsoft operates as a business. Copilot was originally GitHub Copilot. And since then, the GitHub has been axed in favor of Copilot being the branding for all of Microsoft's AI stuff. We'll be going back to GitHub in a bit, so remember that. But as Copilot started doing really well, it was clear that there was opportunity for more. There were a bunch of different attempts like Tab9 and there's a bunch of other attempts at like AI-focused editors like Tab9 that never quite caught on, but one started to do pretty well. Cursor. Obligatory disclosure, I am an investor in Cursor. I was very skeptical of it when I first used it. It took like 3 attempts for Cursor to really feel better for me, especially because the tab complete was slower than what my preference at the time was, which was SuperMaven. SuperMaven is unbelievable. What it was all focused on super fast, quick learning autocomplete. So as you made changes to your code base, SuperMaven would adjust and more quickly pick up on the things you were doing. So if you changed like in a list, you add one field to one entry, it would be able to catch on that you're going to add that to the rest, which was really nice. But SuperMaven's actually an important thing to talk about here before we get to Cursor, because SuperMaven ran into a problem that a lot of the other things building into VS Code ran into. The editor severely limited what you could do. My cat's screaming at the door, one sec. Sorry about that. Anyways. So as good as SuperMaven's tech was, as quality as the autocomplete it could provide was, they were quickly running into limitations from VS Code itself because the extension platform it was a bit of a mess. It was very focused on like adding a little sidebar panel. Like if I go in now, the thing that VS Code was really trying to lean into was different panels that are what the extension does. So here I have the pull request extension. Here I have all of my other extensions. And if I click this arrow, you can see the other ones I have installed. Extensions wanted to do that in language servers and not too much else, which was not enough to do like inline stuff. I even have an extension. Let me make a mistake here. I have this particular extension, the TS, or it's Pretty TS Errors, I believe. Yes. Pretty TS Errors is a great extension. I rely on it heavily. Oh, look, a mustached blonde Theo. Pretty TS Errors will take this horrible formatting that you get from a TypeScript error and make it look like this. So clearly this is pretty extensible, right? Like if I hover here, we get this much nicer looking editor. But you might notice there isn't enough vertical space for it. The reason for that is VS Code doesn't let you like extend this or render things traditionally. This whole piece, the reason I can't highlight text in it, it's an SVG. The creator of Pretty TS Error is using an SVG icon hack in order to sneak this whole like pile of stuff in here, which is really cool. But like absurd that that's necessary because again, VS Code was not built to be extended in the ways that we're trying to extend it now. So Super Maven ran into those limitations and they announced that they plan to solve it by making their own editor. Cursor was already doing that though. And Cursor noticed the Super Maven's strength was its really quick autocomplete, which wasn't yet a strength in Cursor. And as such, they decided to acquire Super Maven to go all in on the tab complete functionality for Cursor. And the result's magical. I'll give a demo in a little bit, but the Cursor tab complete stuff is so good that I barely use the other features, especially right now when I'm working on more technically difficult overhauling tasks. I found that the autocomplete in Cursor is magical. So Cursor is the VS Code fork that brought AI to the masses. Cursor's, again, not something I ever thought I would use, much less love, but it's quickly become essential to my workflow and to the way that I build. At the same time that Cursor was starting to get traction, we get to the topic of today, Codium. Was it Codeium? Okay, cool. There's like 3 Codiums and I always mix them up. We're talking about Codium, like with an E this time. Codium was also an extension, but it was a set of them, of extensions for better AI code assistance for code bases of all sizes. So Codium was similar to something like Super Maven or GitHub Copilot, except it was not just VS Code based. To be fair, Super Maven also had a Vim plugin and whatnot, but Codium always was going all in on supporting JetBrains and other things like that, because like in a big company using Java, 80% of the devs are still on JetBrains. Doesn't matter how good you make your, or it doesn't matter how good you make your plugin for VS Code. If everybody's on JetBrains, because that's the suite that they're familiar with for Java stuff, you're not going to get adoption by those big companies. And for a while, that was their moat, so to speak. Their thing that they had that no one else did was those big companies all relying on Codium's extensions for AI in their editors. And they were signing these big deals. But the thing about enterprise is adoption is weird, sporadic, and for the most part, relatively slow. And it is soul crushing to spend your time talking to these big Java houses. And I know Codium wanted to be more traditionally adopted by people everywhere in their spectrum of team size to developer like career length. They wanted more people like you and me, more people who are learning to code, and for these seasoned people to all be relying on Codium's tech. And this became Windsurf. Very clearly inspired by what was going on with Cursor, they wanted to break out of the shackles that existed within VS Code, which again, despite VS Code being open source, the extension platform built into it was severely limited with how much you could change things in the editor part. So you could do fancy things in your sidebar all you want, but as soon as you had to get that, into the text of your editor, the limitations were really starting to show. Even Copilot was running into issues here. So Cursor realized this and forked early. Windsurf, aka Codium, realized it later, but made the same decision to fork. Windsurf's big change, or Windsurf had one big focus that was different though. Agentic code editing. They went all in on agents. So instead of just making autocomplete better, having the like little Command K feature where I could say, change this to be more type safe, instead of doing these types of things, they wanted the fancy Command I experience where you can describe something you want it to do, and it can run commands, grep for files, and do the whole building part instead of just the, auto-completing as you go. It's less focused on assisting you as you coded and more on coding for you as you told it what to do. So you could also argue this is the vibe coding IDE. It's still an IDE, it's still a program you download and use on your computer. But Windsurf's angle here felt really weird to me. The focus seemed to be on devs, but also people who weren't as good of devs. It seemed to be focused on being cheaper, but also enterprise. And this is where it got confusing for me, is on one side, they were trying to make the simple to get started with editor that would tell you which command to run to start your dev environment for people who didn't know that and charge a cheaper price for it. But at the same time, they were trying to target big companies and businesses with Codium, which is particularly weird that they had both sides to an extent. They wanted to have the noobs on the left here. They wanted to have the noobs over on the left, and they also wanted to have enterprises over here on the right. The problem is that most work, especially most of the people who are early adopters to things, live in the middle here between the two. So this ended up quickly being taken over by Cursor. I want to reference a specific YC talk. Aha.
Adoption curve. This was put out by...
Okay, I don't actually play this talk. It's phenomenal. Tyler did a great job breaking down how sales work for early startups and businesses. And I spend way too much time thinking about this particular curve. The thing that matters in this curve is this idea of the innovators to early adopters. When you're building a new product and you need new people to try out that product, you're not going to try and get the people who don't try new things. Like, there's a lot of developers, I'd even say the majority of devs, the majority of the things that they are using have existed for at least 4 to 5 years, probably longer. They're not going to be the ones trying out your new thing. If you're talking to a company that hasn't yet made the move from vanilla JS to TypeScript, the chances are they're not going to try out your new AI editor. You have to be cognizant of how much change a given person or business is interested in taking before you can start getting adoption. So if you want to get people to try out your thing, you have to target the most willing to try new things subset of the group you're aiming for. So if we look at something like T3 Chat, I'm not expecting your grandma to be the first customer for T3 Chat. I'm expecting the lunatics like everyone hanging out in my audience right now that are excited about new AI tools that try new ones out regularly. I want them to be the ones trying out T3 Chat initially. So I have to position my product accordingly so that that small percentage, the 2 to 3% of all potential customers, are more interested in my product, and I make all my marketing focused on them until I win that section. And then I have to pivot the product some amount as I try to adopt more and more of the people along this curve. So in the innovator section, having every single model as early as possible, having really generous limits and transparency everywhere I can, having like fancy features like really good performance, good sync between platforms, the absolute fun stuff like if we have multiple chats going at the same time in the future, things that these like innovators want to have access to. But as we win that space, and honestly, we've very quickly gotten the like locked in AI people. We're just missing a mobile app for them. But once we have that, early adopters becomes the focus. That's going to be stuff like the automatic model selection. Then early majority, that's going to involve us building stuff like better history compression so you can just use one thread forever. I actually had a user that I was talking to yesterday who's not as familiar with AI stuff, she had been using one thread in T3 chat for 2 weeks. Just kept switching models to ones that could handle bigger contexts until she hit the context limit, because she never thought to make another chat about different topics. She had talked about 30 plus different things inside of that thread, and she got really confused that she couldn't generate an image because it hit the input limits, because it was inputting the whole chat history, not just her most recent message. Stuff like that I need to solve for these normie users if I want to get them as we go further down this curve. But it's important to be cognizant of where you are in this journey. And I think that's one of the issues that Windsurf has run into, and Codium as a whole, is they're trying to build a product for people further down the chain. So what does this mean? What's their adoption looking like? I want to ask chat before we run a poll, and I check my polls. I'll run the poll here. What's your preferred, or what's your main IDE right now? We'll do Windsurf, Cursor, VS Code. I'll throw in Vim. I'll do Neo, Vim, something else. But as you guys are voting, I also want you to predict in chat the difference between the 3 other results I have. Because I ran this poll on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And I'm curious what you guys think the winner is on each of these platforms. We'll just start first. Who do you think won on Twitter? If you've already seen, don't spoil the answers. Okay, seems like everybody thinks VS Code or Cursor was the winner on Twitter. In Twitch chat right now, VS Code is the significant winner, as we see here. But I want you, the viewer of this video, to guess. We have 4 editors that I used in these polls: Windsurf, Cursor, VS Code, and something else. This is the poll that I created on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on YouTube. I want you to, in your head, rank where these 4 fall on each platform and get a guess at how big the gap is between them. Do you think VS Code is 2x more popular than Cursor? Do you think Windsurf is half as popular or something else? It's get a gut feel for where you think these are going to land, because the results might surprise you a lot. And FaZe, if you can cut where I spoiled the results on Twitch chat, that'd be cool. We'll start with Twitch chat because I don't even know what these are going to be. Looks like VS Code is currently the winner with about 50%. Less than I would have expected, but still pretty solid. Cursor, really high up here, 24%. Something else at 16%. NeoVim at 14%. Very interesting that something else is bigger than NeoVim even, because the other polls don't have Vim in it, so I just assumed a lot of the something else was Vim. And then Windsurf at 4%. This was a very small poll of my live Twitch audience. So let's take a look first at Twitter. Fascinating results. This is with 40,000 votes. Something else ended up winning, which is crazy because initially something else was not, but it was Cursor and VS Code neck and neck for a little bit. Cursor is slightly beating out VS Code according to my Twitter audience. Windsurf under 5%, but it's higher than I expected. For a while, it had literally 0. So Windsurf's at 5%, Cursor's at 31, VS Code's at 30, something else is 35. Fascinating results. Now let's take a look at YouTube. This is one of the ones that was most interesting to me. VS Code at 50, Cursor at 18, Windsurf at 2. That's crazy gap there. And then LinkedIn. You'd probably think hard about what you expect the LinkedIn results to be before you see it. It's the business platform. Wild. 47% VS Code, 28% Cursor, only 21% something else. I would have expected this to be way higher because, again, of all like the JetBrains type people. And then Windsurf at 4. So Windsurf is somewhere between 2 and maybe 5%, probably a bit less. It is consistently around a 10th of Cursor's adoption, according to all the places that I ran the poll. But how crazy is it that like first, second, third are different everywhere? Twitter, something else was first, Cursor was second, VS Code was third. YouTube, VS Code was first, something else was second, Cursor was third. And LinkedIn, VS Code first, Cursor second, something else third. The only thing in common across all of these polls is Windsurf losing. Kind of wild. I'm very happy I ran those polls because the results were super different from what I had expected, and I was not expecting the gap there to be so big. And that leads us to the important question, the thing we're all here for. Why the fuck did OpenAI buy Windsurf? The purchase hasn't went through just yet. This is the wrong. The purchase hasn't gone through just yet. OpenAI agreed to the price. OpenAI has agreed to buy Windsurf for about $3 billion. The deal has not closed, but it's looking very likely. The last raise that they had done was at $1.25 billion, which means that the investors will slightly more than double their money, and I'm sure lots of that $3 billion is going to be OpenAI stock, and who wouldn't be pumped to get a discounted rate for OpenAI stock? So I cannot imagine any of the investors being against this acquisition. Just makes a lot of sense. When you can get an easy flip like that, you take it. The only reason that Windsurf would say no is if they are seeing truly absurd growth and think they can be worth way more than $3 billion in the near future, which just seems unlikely. And since their price is so cheap and they're doing agentic code stuff, chances are their bills are currently terrifying. I would not be surprised at all if Windsurf's current costs were unbelievable. So that says why Windsurf would sell. Why would OpenAI want to buy them? Well, I'll let Ballmer cover this one for me.
Developers.
That's why OpenAI wants to buy. That's why OpenAI wants to buy Windsurf. Developers. The biggest risk to OpenAI, a certain company called Anthropic. I would say Google's getting up there now too, but Google's absolute chaos of how do I describe it? Google, if they can get out of their way on the infrastructure and like cloud side, has a really good chance. That's a big if though. Anthropic's the most direct threat to OpenAI. And the biggest thing Anthropic has that OpenAI doesn't is developer sentiment. I've talked about this a bit in other videos covering OpenAI stuff. But Anthropic won with developers. If you poll devs and ask them which models they like to use the most, a significant portion, like over 50%, are going to say Anthropic models. They're going to say 3.5 or 3.7. That's just how it is. I know that because I've seen our own bills with Anthropic models on T3 chat, and they're absurd. Google showed with 2.5 Pro that you can absolutely challenge them in the model quality side. But with things like Claude Code, with things like MCP, with the advantage they still have in general tool call work, Anthropic has been preferred by devs for a while. So why did OpenAI buy Windsurf? The same reason that they made, or it's the same reason they made Codex. It's the same reason they put out GPT 4.1. It's the same reason that O4 Mini and all the new models are so focused on tool calls. They want to destroy the advantage that Anthropic has right now. They want to win in the developer world. Windsurf is an attempt at accelerating their win there. Not just for windsurf, by the way. My suspicion is that Codium is part of this too. But if the goal was to win developers, why would they buy Windsurf and not Cursor? Before I cover this next part, I want to be clear. I have no inside information at all from Cursor. I don't even think I'm currently getting the investor updates, and if I am, I haven't seen one in a while. I have no inside baseball here whatsoever beyond my own speculation, having seen how these things are going down. OpenAI did want to buy Cursor. Thought I had another post about this. Apparently, a while back, OpenAI approached Cursor about an acquisition. And that was one of multiple offers that they were considering. So it seems as though Cursor had multiple different choices, but decided against it because their growth was as insane as it was, and they wanted to see it through to the end. And honestly, I understand. Because if Cursor is, or even ignoring the money side, if you just want to build a product that's used by a lot of people, and you look at the numbers for how your product is being used, you see that 90% of devs are picking the Anthropic models, not the OpenAI models. So you could be acquired by OpenAI, be forced to use their models instead. Now your editor is worse. Now your adoption is worse. Now you have a much worse path to success. I totally understand why Cursor would turn that down. And all the other acquisition offers probably were a joke. And when I say a joke, I don't mean like too low or whatever. I mean, it was just companies that they don't want to work at. So I've heard a lot of people say, well, I guess Google... I've seen a lot of people saying, well, I guess Google's going to buy Cursor now. No, absolutely not. If Cursor didn't sell to OpenAI, I don't think they're going to. They want to ride this out the long way. And I have a lot of respect for them for it. It's going to be quite a battle. And I think they can do it. And they just raised enough money to basically guarantee that they can do it. They raised $900 million on a $9 billion valuation. For no reason in particular, this is how much money Microsoft bought GitHub for. 7.5 bill. After inflation, about 8.96. No reason in particular, just thought that was an interesting number. Not trying to draw any conclusions, just thought you should know. To be clear, this is a very different time. Chances are, with where both Microsoft and GitHub are today, GitHub would be worth significantly more than it was at this acquisition point. But when you think about it, a Git wrapper being worth $9 billion is pretty absurd. It's just a wrapper for Git. Why is it worth that much money? So I had to make that joke. I'm sorry. So OpenAI bought Windsurf for a handful of reasons. One, dev sentiment. They want to win developers. I'll say 1.1. Cursor said no. Two, covering the spectrum of developers. Remember that diagram I drew here where I said Cursor in particular is set for this middle area, and the noobs and the enterprises aren't necessarily well served by them, whereas Windsurf whereas Codium handled enterprises well with their extensions for JetBrains, as well as their focus on indexing huge code bases. Noobs, they are more in the Windsurf world for sure. And what they are focused on here at OpenAI is how do we cover not the middle, not the ends, how do we cover the entire spectrum? And this is how OpenAI thinks about it. All the way at the end, ChatGPT, maybe vibe coding tools, things like that. They haven't really invested too hard there, but the ChatGPT plus Canvas serves well for beginners getting into code stuff. You now have Windsurf slightly further up. That's people who want to download a program and work in it for real. You have Codex, which, if you aren't familiar with, Codex is OpenAI's. They don't like when I call it a Claude Code clone because it was built before Claude Code. It just came out after. But Codex is very much similar to Claude Code. It's a CLI that you can run to make changes to your code base. Not only is it open source and like properly open source, like fucking Apache licensed open source, it's also supporting, or it also supports other models from other providers. Obviously, the OpenAI support is a little more native, but you can use -- provider to access pretty much anything else that you might want to. But you might notice they specifically didn't put a certain provider's name in here. It's almost like there's a certain company they built this to fight with or something. So Codex is very much like further up the chain. And then all the way at the end, the Codium plugin ecosystem. The goal of Windsurf is that it kind of plugs these particular gaps that existed in the developer tooling that OpenAI had. And that's very exciting if you want to cover a spectrum. If you want to cover all developers and you notice these particular gaps in your tooling and in your product offering, Windsurf makes a lot of sense to acquire, not because of this box, but because this and this box both are useful. And if they can have both of them, that's very good for them. Is there anything else like particularly important with this acquisition I should cover? Interesting. One last piece to consider is the OpenAI valuation. Their last raise, I don't think it's formally closed yet, but it's about to. It's $40 billion of money raised at a $300 billion valuation. So this acquisition is going to be a $3 billion acquisition. OpenAI just raised 40 bill at 300 bill val. This means that OpenAI just gave up around 10%. It's actually a little bit more. We'll call it 12%, easy math. They gave up around 12% of their value with dilution. Because now, before this raise, if you owned 50% of OpenAI, this gave 12% to external parties, which means your 50% is now worth 6% less, roughly. So you're now at like 44%, because that's how dilution works. When you bring in more money, existing percentages, existing ownership gets diluted, so it's shrunk. So let's look at the numbers here. $3 billion acquisition, $300 bill valuation. In order for them to do this acquisition, 1% of OpenAI is being traded for Windsurf. They're effectively taking all of the ownership that exists right now for Windsurf and Codium. So if like the founders have half, their half of Windsurf is now going to become 0.5% of OpenAI. All the investors are going to have a similar conversion, but chances are this acquisition is going to be largely stock. There could be some portion of cash. Like they could have 1 billion of this 40 bill as cash. They could even do a straight cash acquisition and give them no equity, but that's very unlikely. But this is for 1% of OpenAI right now. So if you think of this purely by percentages, it's not too big a risk for OpenAI. It's like a 1 in 100 risk. They're giving up 1% of the business for this. And is there a percentage chance that this helps them a lot? Yeah, I think a 1% trade, if I could give up 1% of my business to significantly improve the likelihood developers use my products, I would do that in a heartbeat. The valuation matters a lot less when you're thinking in this way. OpenAI is giving up 1% of their war chest, 1% of their value, in order to increase the likelihood that they succeed in the developer world. That's how they're thinking about this. That said, giving up 1% of OpenAI in order to get at most 4.5 to 5% of developers feels a little weird. Yeah. The absolute baller move they could do, though, and I do think there is potential for this. This is my crazy conspiracy. We go back here. OpenAI is working pretty hard at winning over devs. Codex is a phenomenal example of that. Codex is one of the best truly open source CLI code assistant tools. And it's truly fully open source. I know the meme is that OpenAI isn't really open, but I know for a fact they're working hard on their new open source models that are going to be very open and very flexible. It seems like OpenAI is very much interested in open source where it benefits developers and developer sentiment. I think this is an absolutely crazy thought. OpenAI might open source Windsurf. Imagine if right now the value of these forks of both Windsurf and Cursor is that they fix all these shortcomings in VS Code because VS Code doesn't have the right extensibility for agentic flows, for inline code editing, for all these things. If OpenAI was to acquire Windsurf, no longer need it to succeed at making money, but their goal is for Windsurf not to print a bunch of cash for them, but to win developers over. I think they could do this. Could go either way. But if their goal is to make developers like them more and make developers more likely to reach for OpenAI-based stuff over time, this is the one way I think they could beat out Cursor. And I do really think there's a chance here. Really good question from chat. Wouldn't that damage the relationship with Microsoft? For those who aren't familiar, Microsoft and OpenAI have had a very long-standing relationship. A lot of secrets traded between them, a lot of help from Microsoft, a lot of cash from Microsoft, info from Microsoft. Well, earlier this month, I saw a fun announcement. Microsoft prepares to host xAI's Grok model on Azure. Microsoft has a pretty limited set of models on Azure right now. It's mostly open ones, like Mistral's set of open source models, DeepSeek, stuff like that, but also OpenAI models and a bunch of Azure models that nobody uses. But the value of Azure right now for AI companies, including us with T3 Chat, is hosting OpenAI models somewhere else for redundancy. The only places in the world right now that you can host a model like O3 Mini, O4 Mini, 4.1, all these, are you can call OpenAI's official APIs, or you can use Azure. Those are your options. So why is Microsoft making their first partnership outside of OpenAI with Grok, Elon's AI company? Well, you don't have to be particularly tuned in to know about the deep hatred that Elon's AI stuff and OpenAI have of each other. Elon talks so much shit on OpenAI. This is very clearly an attempt to rabble-rouse over at Microsoft and OpenAI for Microsoft to put their foot down and say, we're doing things how we want, you don't have control of us anymore. What's really funny is that Sam and Satya were hanging out at the OpenAI office and took a photo together the next day. So I'm almost certain this is some type of bargaining, some type of negotiation tactic from Microsoft. A kind of crazy one, too. So to the question of what about the relationship with Microsoft, I think that's already long gone. And open sourcing Windsurf isn't even like, they're not even considering Microsoft in the equation when they do that. That's an entirely different like executive war that's being fought. So to summarize, I think the acquisition valuation is kind of absurd considering the user base, but I think it makes more sense when you talk about the percentage that it represents of OpenAI, and when you think about the spectrum of developers and what tools they like to use, and what OpenAI's actual goal is, which is to have developers love them, both so that they have a lot of developers using their stuff, and also to prevent the utter chaos of Anthropic coming in and winning devs. So this is a protection play to keep Anthropic out. It's a sentiment play to position them better with developers. It is a market integration play to own from noob to enterprise the developer stack. And it's potentially a baller open source move as well. Do I think they will beat Cursor? No. Do I think open sourcing it could give Cursor a real threat? Absolutely, yes. That's everything I have to say about this one. I'm curious what you guys think. Is this acquisition absurd or does it make some sense? Let me know what you think. And until next time, peace, nerds. And yes, they use the name Codex for their models before, which makes it even more confusing. So police chat history. Yeah. I want to think through what this looks like. If you could DM me this or email it to support for context, like I might want to do a user interview to better understand this workflow. I want to figure out these types of power user things, but we have a long ways to go there first. I've seen you've been spamming this. Prisma-inspired language and HTTP micro framework on top of Mongo. You know how to get my attention. I'll give you that. What does this like output? Does it not output web? Is it just like putting out an API? Interesting. Yeah, my gut feel on this is that new languages are a tough sell at the moment. And I think like if I was building a tool or a framework right now, my focus would be more so on, how do I explain it? It'd be more on like the deployment side. How can I make deployment easier and consistent so that AI can do it better? Yeah, the graphics were absolutely fucking hilarious. Oh shit, they added an API for web search to Anthropic? Fun. That'll be an annoying thing for us to have to implement soon. $10 for 1,000 searches. That's actually not too bad. That's actually really not bad. Cool. That won't be too bad to add. Nice. Can't add until I finish my overhaul to the database stuff because it's utter fucking chaos and I'm tired of dealing with the world's worst merge conflicts. Let me drop the remaining sources. Nope. No, I want to get... Okay, Faith, I don't know if you're here. I want to record an extra for the windsurf vid because I don't think I talked about revenue, which is important. Can I make this fucking go away? Okay, cool. It's gone. Nice. If you're put this whenever I was talking about Cursor's valuation. If you think that number is too high, I get it. But we're talking about a company that hit $100 million in annual revenue. So that's $100 million a year in January. And they hit $200 million in March. Doubling your revenue in 2 months when you're already that high of a number is just fucking insane. This growth is absurd. And this is why companies are betting on Cursor and on companies like it, the level they are. Turns out not only is a VS Code fork worth a lot of money to investors, it can potentially be a cash cow too. $200 million a year is absurd. Obviously, the margins aren't going to be great because you're paying a subscription and then a lot of that money is going over to the AI model providers. But $200 million a year in revenue is just an absurd number, and that growth is crazy, especially when you consider models are getting cheaper. Chances are their margins are going to get significantly better over time. This valuation makes a lot of sense. Cool. Editor's notes. I recorded an extra bit for when I talk about the Cursor fundraise. Did Codium ever post revenue? I saw that Cerebrus is fast. It's pretty good, but so is Grok with a Q. Like they're both like neck and neck. So I haven't put that much time into like thinking it through. Let me thank all the subs that I missed while I was filming. We got Kasi here with the 3 months of support. Thank you for that. Yocap and Pixel with the Prime. Nemesis Codex with the Prime as well. iBlue Guy 16 months in, legend. Fleck Tom here with the tier 1. Thank you for that. 1 year goes by so quick. I totally agree, Furtive. Thanks for stopping by as always. Manu K here with the Prime sub. 17 Shang with the Prime. Chesk here with the 5 gift bomb. Flamey with the 2 months. Frozen with the 2 months. CD Dev with the 31 months. Jesus Christ, y'all been around for a while. Dan from Cursor with Prime. You actually from Cursor? Good shit. And Sky Freak here with the Prime as well. Littlefinger 9 months in. Thank you for the support. Cool. I forgot to put a link for the Figma stuff. Quality site. Cool. Is there copywritten music in this one? No music, please. Fuckers, why do they always do this? I'm gonna hide so you guys can't hear this, and I can... Oh, wait, no, I can't hear it either when I do that. Fuck me. Is there dialogue in the video? If there's no dialogue, I can just leave it muted and it's fine. No dialogue? Cool. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Cool. Get all those sources. I lost me. Cool. They do a video for Figma Make as well. I'm curious. I want to watch this one first, just see if there's anything good in it, and then we'll get started with the video.
Ideas out of your head and into the real world. With Figma Make, you can take an existing design and prompt your way to a fully coded prototype. For this demo, please welcome to the stage Holly Lee, Product Manager of Figma Make.
All right. Thank you, Dylan. Hi, config. All right. I joined Figma in January of this year as a PM on the AI team, and it's already been the adventure of a lifetime. Now, like many of you, I've been making for as long as I can remember, including today's confit. I hope you like it. Now, for work, I get to make AI products, but I'm sure we all face a lot of the same challenges. Turning a design into something real enough to validate takes a long time, and it's hard to do. So that's why we built Figma Make. With Figma Make, you can go beyond having to imagine how your design should feel and actually just experience it. So today, it's an honor to present to you all Figma Make on behalf of the superstar team behind it. We're building really rapidly, shipping new features and improvements every week. And while it's still really early, we're just so excited about all the ways Make can change how we design, iterate, and explore. So let's get into it. Okay, like most makes, you're probably going to start with an existing design in Figma. So here, you can see my team is prototyping a music app we're calling Earworm. Now let's say we just want to explore how this core player element will feel, right? How the CD is going to spin, how those buttons will feel like to click. Now, historically, prototyping even a simple design like this would have taken a lot of noodles, maybe an engineer, maybe switching to a different tool. But today is not that day. Now, with Figma Make, you can play with your designs just as you created them, all in Figma. All we're going to do is take that core player frame, copy, and paste it into the Make prompt box. And I'm just going to say, please make this CD player interactive. The CD should spin when I play a track. Thank you. Remember to be polite to your large language models. And because we're Figma, we're not just giving the model an image of your design. We're passing the design itself, including all of that structure and metadata. The model can reference the layers in your design, understand what they're for, and iterate and incorporate that knowledge in its generation. Okay, and this is a live demo, no stage tricks, and models can be finicky, so wish me luck. Thank you. Now, I can even interact with my elevation data, starting to stream it. Now, many of you have used tools like this before, and you know we're asking the AI to do a pretty hard thing, and it just needs a minute. So while this runs, let's go take a look at some fun make examples. All right, let's start with this one. You can see here that Tom's team is testing out a new feature for their cycling app called Trail Journey. In Make, I can actually upload a file, so let me give it this bike ride, and then experience all my data instantaneously, live. Look at that. I can play back my route, and I can even interact with my elevation data. Make turned my design into a living, breathing product. So remember that amazing... All right, buckle up. In Make, you can manipulate and render complex graphics, like these shaders, courtesy of our designer Daniel, and even threw in some really fun animations. And in Make, you can explore in new dimensions. Check out this amazing 3D tool by our designer Tammy. And if you just bear with me for a second, let's see how good my cursive is. I can write config. All right. Okay. Pew, pew, pew. These examples are just one more really fun example. In Make, this represents. You can freeform. We know you've never actually seen interactions there, but okay. This time the model had a little bit of difficulty to see where you take it in sites. Now remember that generation from earlier? Let's take a look. Okay. This time the model had a little bit of difficulty, but that's okay. All of the interactions there, but just to prepare, I had this one also made right before stage. So as you can see, this was our original design, and Make translates it pretty much one-to-one. But we know you've never actually stopped here. You keep adding things, right? Riffing on it, adding designs, adding functionality. And to give you more creative control, we've actually introduced ways to target your edits to specific parts of the design. So we're introducing the point and edit tool, which allows you to directly manipulate things.
Okay, this is... Oh boy. Yeah, we're gonna have to go through this video as part of my video. That's fun. Okay, I know how we're gonna do this now. I have the flow in my head. Love this bug. There's a fun story here. Oh shit, I did not know Dylan Field followed me. Oh no, hopefully we don't lose that here. Anyways. Don't be sorry for spamming, that's useful. These are the official pages for it. Looks like site's not found. That's quite the 404 page, Figma. Full video from Bolt.
It's an honor to present to you all Figma Make on behalf of the superstar team behind it. Rapidly shipping new.
I love Eric so much. He's the best. He's so underrated. This will be fun. This is going to be a fun one. Okay. Let's get started. Marker Figma stuff. Yeah. I want to start this. Okay. I think I have a flow. I want a really good opening for this one. Okay. Figma's in an interesting place nowadays. Most of what they do is... Figma's in a really interesting place nowadays. After the... God. Third time's a charm. Figma's in an interesting place nowadays. After the acquisition from Adobe failed due to intervention from the government, it seemed like they were not going to be able to be acquired ever. That is still the case, but they need some way to make money. I recently did a video breaking down a drama they had with Lovable, and I tried to focus the video on one particular thing. How does Figma grow their audience? Right now, Figma is the tool of choice for designers who are designing applications for the web and for mobile. But if you're not doing that, if you're not a designer working on applications, Figma's not particularly useful to you. They've been trying to branch out, getting everybody from product and project managers to developers to use their stuff, to mixed success. Today, they have doubled down with 2 new products they just released. Figma Sites, which is a website builder and a CMS similar to something like WordPress, and Figma Make, an AI code generator similar to tools like Lovable, Bolt, and V0. And these tools are very, very interesting and spell a very... These tools are very interesting and they help really show how Figma is starting to position themselves. We're going to go through... I'm going to go through both Figma Make and Sites, what they're for, who they're for, and where Figma is going with all of this. But as you guys know, Figma's never paid me a cent. If anything, I've paid them way too much money leaving a subscription on AutoSub that I forgot. As you guys know, Figma has never paid me a cent, even though I'm paying them quite a bit with an old subscription that I forgot to cancel. So someone has to pay for this. Quick word from today's sponsor. Then we're going to dive all in to what Figma's been building. Cool. There a tweet about sites? I want to talk about Figma Sites first because it's a bit simpler to understand. Also, the video's hilariously laggy. This isn't your device or even my device. This is just the thing they put out. It is what it is. The goal of Figma Site... God, why is the audio playing again? Fuck you. Yeah. The goal of Figma Sites is to make it easier for people who aren't developers or designers necessarily to be able to make their website look good, and most importantly, be editable by non-designers. If you've ever done consulting work before, you know there's a reason people pick WordPress, and it's not because WordPress is this magical tool. The reason people pick WordPress is once you have set up a client with a WordPress site, they can go into the WordPress dashboard and make changes that might be weird and chaotic and break things a bit, but you're giving the client more control. With Figma, if you hire a designer right now and they use Figma to design the thing, and then they send you the PNGs of that design, now you have to hire a developer to go implement it and put it on the website. And then if you want to change, you have to go through both the designer to make the change in Figma and then the developer to apply that change to the code. Not a good experience. And Figma knows that this is a thing that's going to become an existential risk to them. Because right now, that designer, they might lose their job because a lot of the people hiring consultants, they don't want a groundbreaking, high quality design. They want something passable that looks good enough so they can get back to doing their business. And if that results in, or that means that a lot of these people are going to be more than happy with decent 6 out of 10 quality AI generated designs and applications. As such, Figma might be at risk for that design pocket that they currently own. Somebody linked figma.com/sites. Cool. There we go. Okay, it looks a lot better on their website than on the Twitter video. So we still have all the fancy multiplayer stuff, all their crazy layout shifting, auto layout grid stuff they just put out today. But the cooler part here isn't just like multiplayer graphics editing for a web page. It's the combination of a one-click publish. Weird, the word publish only comes up twice, doesn't show it. In the video they showed, there's a publish button now. So you can just click it and ship the thing that you were building. And soon they have prompting coming for it, where you can prompt to build the site. I did notice they didn't talk about this part particularly loudly. I have a conspiracy about why in a minute. The other part that they mentioned that isn't there is that they have a CMS coming, a content management suite. This will make it a lot easier for your clients to add a blog post or make changes to the content on a page without needing to go into Figma directly. If they can pull that part out, that'll be huge. But this again, like this is competing with WordPress. The problem is if we think about the flows that existed before and compare them to the flows of today. The problem here, I think the role of these tools will be much clearer if we think about the flow that things would go through, even like 5 years ago. I want a website for my startup. So I have this conclusion. I want a website for my startup. Maybe it's my, not a startup, maybe it's my medium-sized business. So I have a business. I want to make a website for it. What do I do? Maybe I go try to learn how to code, realize it's hard, and then say, okay, we need a website. So I hire a consultant. They're like, okay, we need a designer. So I hire a designer. So I have a designer. The designer has a design that they make in Figma. They send the Figma design out as a PD or as a PNG or whatever that goes to the developer. The developer builds it, we'll say with WordPress. And that gets handed off to me. Now, when a change needs to happen, I have to tell the designer what I want. They make the change in Figma. They hand it to the developer. The developer adds it to the WordPress site. And now I, the owner, have some amount of control where I can make some changes here. What about, so pretty normal flow. I think we're all somewhat familiar with this. So what's changed? A couple things have changed. Bolt, Lovable. I want to get these all open first. The things that changed are Bolt and Lovable, and to an extent V0 as well. But I want to focus on these two for reasons that'll become apparent in a minute. Bolt and Lovable are a very different flow for building your thing. You can import a design from Figma in both if you want to. But what's more important is that I, as an owner of a business that might not be technical, can tell this what I want. And instead of having to wait days or more for this whole loop to be completed and paying a bunch of people along the way, I can just tell the text input here what I want and get an idea of it. Now the iteration has been, this cuts the designer and Figma out of the iteration entirely. Because if I am the owner and I want the same thing, I go to Bolt. Bolt outputs a website. And then I, the owner, can look at it and make changes using Bolt. And if I need a developer to come in and fix some things, I can hire them, have them come in, tidy up the app. This flow here, this new way of a non-technical owner being able to build something is a massive risk to the business that Figma has here. Because this flow involves Figma directly in it, because it involves a designer using Figma directly in it. There's a huge risk that future flows don't involve designers, thereby don't involve Figma, and that would destroy their business. And that's why they're fighting back. Remember the video I did a week or two ago where Figma was suing, remember the video I did a week or two ago where Figma was suing Lovable for using the term dev mode? It wasn't a suit, it was a cease and desist, but the same difference here. They are clearly threatened by what Bolt, Lovable, and these other companies are doing. And thankfully, for better or worse, they woke up to this risk earlier than most probably would have expected. Other businesses are going to quietly die because they don't realize this soon enough. Figma has realized it. They have some problems, though. The first problem is designers. I'm not saying designers are problems. In fact, I'm saying quite the opposite. Designers are awesome. Designers are great. The problem is that designers are feeling some existential dread at the moment because AI does meaningfully risk a lot of their work, especially like full-time employed designers on a team of 50 working on mocks for random things in the application that their company builds. Those roles are going to become less important when AI tools get good enough to generate work of similar quality. And we're getting there fast. Because of that, and also the general frustration that the art and design worlds have with AI, designers don't get along with AI. As such, Figma can't really go all in on the obvious thing, which is, what if Figma took their canvas and made it automatic with AI? What if I could prompt in Figma for it to make a mock? They can't do that because then they're risking losing their most important persona. They have to be very careful with how they roll out AI on the design side because they don't want to lose the design, or because they don't want to lose the designer sentiment. If they lose that, they're screwed. And they are very, very aware of that. As such, Figma's focus isn't on automating on the side here, it's over here. They want to make the developer less relevant because their goal is to hold the designer and make them the individual that can build all of the things you want. So if you think of this less as how is Figma trying to win developers, more how is Figma trying to use AI to keep designers happy, maintain their business's position in the world at cost of whatever else, it makes much more sense. Figma doesn't mind replacing developers because Figma's customers aren't really developers right now. And if they can help a designer not need a developer, they could cause a cultural shift that will allow them to survive as things are changing. As such, Figma Sites makes a lot of sense. And when you see some of the features that it has, and you compare it to something like Lovable, it'll make even more sense. Let me sign into Lovable quick, one sec. As I mentioned before, one of those most important pieces, it's this button, Publish. All these tools have a one-click publish button, so I can take the thing I was building and send it to somebody. That is huge, especially if you combine that button with like a domain purchasing product. You would allow for normies to build websites and send them to people with a real domain. And Figma's clearly petrified of this. But in order to better understand why they're so petrified, we should probably watch their announcement video. There's a lot of little details in here that I think will explain what's going on much better. So, without further ado, let's dive in.
To help you take ideas out of your head and into the real world. With Figma Make, you can take an existing design and prompt your way to a fully coded prototype. For this demo, please welcome to the stage Holly Lee, Product Manager of Figma Make.
Okay, so as we just heard, the person coming on stage is the Product Manager for Figma Make. If this has been core to their strategy for a while, you would imagine she's probably been there for a bit. How long do you think the Product Manager leading Figma Make has been at Figma for, and how long do you think she's been working on this product? Get an idea in your head before she says the answer.
Thank you, Dylan. Hi, config. All right. I joined Figma in January of this year as a PM on the AI team, and it's already been the adventure of a lifetime.
She's been there since January. She's been there since January because she's only been there for about 4 months. And the reason for that is because this is a recent bet that Figma is making. It seems like they woke up to the threat that these things had for them very recently. And that's why they're hiring people like her and building products like this. This is a recent thing they woke up to, not some long-term thing they've been planning for years. This started this year.
Now, like many of you, I've been making for as long as I can remember, including today's confit. I hope you like it.
We'll skip all the cheesy jokes and get to the actual product here.
Go beyond having to imagine how your design should feel and actually just experience it. So today, it's an honor to present to you all Figma Make on behalf of the superstar team behind it.
Yeah, they presented the input box on the stage. This is how they announced the feature, including the Claude 3.7 sonnet in the bottom right corner. I don't know about you guys, but the designers I know aren't particularly versed in the intricacies of different models and how they differ. My guess is that either the team making this is so AI-pilled that they felt like they had to put that there, or they have a partnership with Anthropic that involved them putting that there. I think the latter is more likely.
We're building really rapidly, shipping new features and improvements every week. And while it's still really early, we're just so excited about all the ways Make can change how we design, iterate, and explore.
The interesting points we get to when she pulls up an example.
Okay, like most makes, you're probably going to start with an existing design in Figma. So here, you can see my team is prototyping a music app we're calling Earworm.
Note that this is a normal Figma app that they designed using Figma. This isn't an AI-generated UI. They recommend that you start with the UI already in Figma and then bring it in to the Figma Make product. Again, they are trying to not make they're trying to not scare designers. They're trying to keep designers from feeling threatened by the AI for as long as possible by empowering them to do more. They're trying to give designers capabilities outside of their norms without threatening the thing they actually do. This is very close to things like the closest comparison I can think of for this is something like Copilot with VS Code back in the day. Copilot wasn't threatening to automate our jobs by writing our code for us. It was offering to help us with parts that were tedious and annoying as we did our work. They aren't doing that. I'd argue things like auto layout are kind of the equivalent there in the Figma world, but it's the same mindset of not threatening the thing that you do for a living, just augmenting it and making external dependencies of it better.
Now let's say we just want to explore how this core player element will feel, right? How the CD is going to spin, how those buttons will feel like to click. Now, historically, prototyping even a simple design like this would have taken a lot of noodles, maybe an engineer, maybe switching to a different tool. But today is not that day. Now, with Figma Make, you can play with your designs just as you created them, all in Figma. All we're going to do is take that core player frame, copy, and paste it into the Make prompt box. And I'm just going to say, please make this CD player interactive. The CD should spin when I play a track. Thank you. Remember to be polite to your large language models. And because we're Figma, we're not just giving the model an image of your design.
Oh, I just realized I was muted. Shit. There's an important button in the corner right there. It's hard to see right now, but it says publish. It's very clear what they are going for. And it's kind of funny when you remember this is the same company that went after Lovable for using the term dev mode when they're ripping the entire user experience like piece for piece. But yeah.
We're passing the design itself, including all of that structure and metadata. The model can reference the layers in your design, understand.
Look at that React code. Set current track, set current time, duration. You get the idea.
What they're for, and iterate and incorporate that knowledge.
Style JSX global, doing global styles here. Fun.
In its generation. Okay, and this is a live demo, no stage tricks, and models can be finicky, so wish me luck.
She did not have very good luck. She showed off some other demos of things that they built, including a 3D RPG, apparently. I'm curious to see what that ends up looking like. It seems like it's just using 3.js, but my guess is it's React 3 Fiber under the hood. They didn't show the code for that one, sadly, so I can't confirm. But then they go back to the generation.
Okay, this time the model had a little bit of difficulty, but that's okay. All of the interactions there, but just to prepare, I had this one also made right before stage. So as you can see, this was our original design, and Make translates it pretty much one-to-one. But we know you'd never actually stop here. You'd keep adding things, right? Riffing on it, adding designs, adding functionality. And to give you more creative control, we've actually introduced ways to target your edits to specific parts of the design. So we're introducing the Point and Edit tool, which allows you to directly manipulate things like size, color, and font of elements on the page. And for more complex, thank you. And for more complex and open-ended edits, we also have Point and Prompt, where you can just pass in the specific part of the design and ask the model to only make changes there. So I can
Really crazy, innovative feature we have here. If I hop back to my Lovable that I had open here, and I click on their edit button. Oh, setting a preview. Sorry. I'll retake that once we're here. I want to give it a good chance. Cool. Super original feature they just demoed there. I'm sure that the edit here is very different. Oh. Huh. I can edit the tailwind right there. I can prompt it to do different things. I can even edit the text. Please subscribe. Save. Almost like clearly Figma is paying close attention to what Lovable is doing, and they are building a near one-to-one clone. This feature is really cool, by the way. The fact that you can, as a non-technical person, click edit, click an element, and modify it as though it is just like a WYSIWYG editor, when in reality, we have a code view that is actual React source code being edited directly. Honestly, pretty nuts. Lovable's built a pretty cool thing here. I can't help but notice when I hover here, though, it says code view now. It used to say dev mode. I wonder why they had to change that. I thought they weren't going to. It seemed like they were fully committed to not changing it, but that is different. Curious what happened there. Yeah. You get the idea, though. There is a lot of overlap between what Lovable and Bolt offer. Actually, let me check to see if Bolt has. I think Bolt has the same feature. By the way, Bolt has the same features. I'm actually pretty sure Bolt had deploy first. They partnered with Netlify in order to get that supported super early. But they also have the inspector where I can click on a thing and I can prompt to change it. I don't think it has the same like inline text editing that Lovable has, but you can tell it that you want to do something different. Like tone down the glow. It's a bit much. And now it will, on this one element, make a change. You can see how useful this would be for a non-technical person. Maybe somebody who's not even a designer can get something roughly how they want here and then click through and tell it, I want to fix this, I want to fix that. Is it as fast as the developer doing it themselves? Probably not. But when you consider that the developer had to spend thousands of hours learning how to code and the person doing this doesn't have to have any code experience at all, suddenly the product makes a lot more sense to have exist. And look at that. It toned down the glow. Nice and easy. Anything else good in this?
Say, make the CD spin more 3D. All right, these are only my edits. And one of the best parts of Make is that it's all in Figma. So the gang's all here. What I would actually want to do is collaborate on this design with my entire team. So as a parting note, let's see how my team would take Earworm. All right. Okay, it looks like the gang's all here. Earworm 4.0 has gotten quite a facelift. And it looks like Greta and Noah have even added a real AI DJ experience. Give me a song. We know a lot of you are probably prototyping.
Chat UI overload. We need like one more in here so I can chat. Like if this was on YouTube and we had the chat so I could talk to the video, that has the AI app builder with a chat that built a chat into the AI chat. Oh God. Yeah, and I can promise you, as a person deep in the music world, the last thing any musician wants, any DJ especially wants, is a fucking chat interface.
In designing AI chat experiences, and you can do that in Make. And you can not only rig this up to other models, but you can also rig it up to real data sources. So we can fetch real audio tracks for all of these music tracks right here. Now, my team and I have had a blast building Make, and we hope you all have as much fun using it. We're only just getting started.
Yeah. Knowing Figma as well as I do, this is one of the earliest states they've released a product in. Normally when they release things, they're like more demoable. Like the one demo they tried live failed outright. It seems like this is them firing a warning shot as much as it is them shipping a real product that you can use today. But that's what Figma Make is meant to be. All of this is Figma fighting back in a world where their product is at existential risk. I went from spending a decent amount of time in Figma to almost none over the last year and a half or so. And I know I'm not the only one. These AI tools made it so we didn't have to have a full-time designer and we could build a real product people love. I then obviously had to bring in help for T3 Chat because it was not very pretty. But now it is. And that was quite an experience to get there. And Figma was not part of our design process there almost at all, which is crazy. And yeah, thank you, Dom, for all of the help with the redesign, by the way. You get the point. Figma's role is quickly getting squeezed out. And rather than wait till it's too late, Figma's decided to rush to show the world that they can't be killed off just yet. They won't let Lovable, or they're going to keep fighting back. They're going to keep trying to empower designers. And I think they're going to make a side bet of automating more design work too, as we saw a little bit of hinted at in Figma, or in the Figma, what's it called? Figma site? Yeah. Figma sites isn't mentioning AI a whole lot. Yeah. AI isn't even mentioned on the Figma site learner page, but they did hint during the presentation that in the future, they'll be able to generate designs with AI. But it's very clear where Figma stands. They want to avoid telling designers that their jobs will be automated with AI. They want to show designers things that they can do with AI that they couldn't before. And I think this is going to be very exciting to those designers. I know the best designer I ever worked with when I was at Twitch, she wanted to do really good testing of her designs with users before developers put all the time into building it. So she learned a bunch of like basic HTML, CSS, JS stuff to make mocks of her own designs from Figma so she could put the UX, even if it was entirely mock data and didn't work, so she could throw it in front of real users to get their feedback and see how they navigated the experiences she built. Is this going to replace the developers that would have had her work handed to them? Absolutely not. But is this going to allow for designers like her to do better feedback loops? Is it going to allow for more designers to do the things that she did? Absolutely. I'm curious to see long-term where they position themselves with this. Things like the publish button suggest they really want to go after devs and go after things like Bolt. But they also want to fight WordPress for some reason, and they also really don't want to hurt designers in the process. They're in a weird spot. I don't envy where Figma is today. Curious to see how they survive the chaos going on in this AI-driven world. I'm also curious what you guys think about all this. Am I overreacting here, or is Figma actually behaving as scared as they seem to be? Let me know what you think, and until next time, peace, nerds. Cool. Wrong button. Oh, that's hilarious. This I love this video. This is a classic. The meme tweet, I couldn't think of a good place to sneak it in. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let me see how behind I am on all this shit going on. Making sure I'm not late to things. What time does that show at? Okay. It's not for a little bit. Cool. And one more DM. Okay, I seem to be good. Cool. I have a shitload of emails to reply to. Let me thank all the subs and things I missed while I was filming that one. Something I got you, Littlefinger. Thank you for the 9 months. SEO food, 2 months in. Thank you for that. MRL with the Prime. FCAS with the Prime as well. Thank you, Castilla, for that. Timo, hitting the 11-month mark right on that 1 year. Blazing Phoenix, 7 months in. Good to see you, Gamer Girl. No worries that you haven't been around. I hope all is well. Thank you for stopping by regardless. Always good to see you. Hope you're doing okay. Then Miffy here. Missed me at Stripe sessions. Sorry, I have a lot to do. My CTO's been out, so I've been working more than ever, and I'm trying to get this overhaul on the sync engine done. I can show that off a little bit, because I'm pretty proud. Check this out, nerds. I'm going to make a new thread. Write me 4 poems about cats. I'm going to close the sidebar, and we're going to open that here. And it's already in sync. Check this out. Write 3 more. How cool is that? They stay fully in sync now. And so they're saying convex, yes, but not just convex. I had to do a lot of shit to make this that consistent. Like, a lot of shit. This has been a very non-trivial change. And if I delete a thread in one, it will disappear in the other as well. And my favorite part by far, if I regen and it's coming in and I refresh, it resumes fine. This has been hellish. I am proud. But God. Does it work if you close the first tab? Yep. So if I rerun this and I close Chrome entirely, it keeps coming in. We now have the most resilient AI chat app on the market. I had to fight hard for this shit. WebSockets are involved, yes. If you think any of the existing sync tools do this, you do not understand the intricacies of the generation problem. I'll probably end up doing a whole video on this once it's actually shipped, but here's the problem. The TLDR. No, I want a new scene. If I generate a message, let's say I say count to 100. Now the AI has to respond to this. It responds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. The problem is when the AI responds here, it's not responding with a chunk of these. It's responding with a token. And a token in this case is going to be probably just the 1 and the new line. So 1 new line, 2 new line, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. The problem with this is that we're not going to send back just the one number because we're writing this to DB. So we have a message row. And in DB, the message row, has content. And content is 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So whenever we update this content in DB, we just change this. We'll add, when the new token comes in, 5n. What do we send down to the user? We don't send down the diff. We don't just send down 5 new line. We send down the entire content of message row. Every single one of these sync engines sends down the new value for the row, not the thing that changed in it. Because they're not built with the assumption that a sub key in a given row has append-only things happening to it. So to every single person saying, oh, try InstantDB, oh, try Firebase, oh, try Supabase, oh, try Electric SQL, oh, try Zero, every single fucking one of them does this. Every single one. And do you know what solution most of them propose? How about instead of storing messages, store tokens? So here I'd have index or 0, content 1n. And we have another one when the new token comes in, index 1, 2n. And now, when the query changes, we can just send the new token row instead. Do you know how many tokens T3 Chat has generated since we launched it? We're in the tens of billions. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not interested in building a Postgres database implementation with Sync that has billions of rows in it. So this solution doesn't work for shit. So continue telling me, oh, if you just use sync primitive X, this would have been so easy. Anyone can do this, when you are just entirely fucking wrong. Our sync solution is DIY by me. It is built on top of Convex. Convex not only has a platform and infrastructure that's potentially really good for this, they also have guidance on how to do these things more properly. But the key is, when the server responds with streamed text, I need to show that to the user as quickly as possible. So if we go back to a demo here, let me switch to a slower model. Where's the R1 not distilled? Open router, cool. This will be nice and slow. And tell it to write 5 more instead. And we're going to check out in the network tab the chat request, because you'll see here the tokens come in 1 token at a time. Right now it's doing the reasoning. Once it is done, we'll see the text all coming in. Sadly, the DeepSeek R1 deployments are not super reliable, but these are coming in token by token, and I show them in the UI as soon as they come in. Separately, I persist it. Does look like that failed, though. Cool. Oh, no, it's coming through now. It just, again, open router, not the fastest. Not the open router is slow, but the DeepSeek R1 deployments tend to be iffy. It's not a live demo fail. It's going. Why don't we diff on the client side? What? The problem is if we have this as the thing that was streamed, we don't send to the client the length of this. We send to the client 1, then we send to the client 1, 2, then we send 1, 2, 3, then we send 1, 2, 3, 4, and we do that over and over again. You end up with comically more data being sent to the user. What you want is to send that down. You want 1, 2, 3, 4. But what you end up sending is 1, then you send 1, 2, then you send 1, 2, 3, then you send 1, 2, 3, 4. You just send n factorial data down to the user. And when these messages get thousands of tokens long, you're sending a string that's like 100 kilobytes, then it's 100 kilobytes and a little more, and you do that over and over again. One request could be like tens of megabytes for a chat gen. It's nonsense. We cannot do that, which is why we don't. I built my own chunking, and that is my code, not yours. Not sharing it yet. So I'm still streaming from the request, but I fall back on a chunked stream as the request, or if I don't have the request, or if you refresh or the request has issues. But I have 2 paths. Yeah. I'm not giving away all our secrets yet. I need to film videos. So let's do that. What else do we got today? The one-liner. OpenAI has 400 million users, so at least half of that. I did see Zed doing the agentic stuff. I want to play with it more before potentially filming a video on it. Oh, that's really interesting. I don't finish. Because what that means is your company's proxy doesn't handle streams. Your company's proxy waits till the whole request is completed and forwards it on to you, which means your company's proxy is fucking shit. I haven't shared our user counts yet. I might do it in the future. It just doesn't make sense to now. Got to keep some info private. I don't intend to change anytime soon. Don't worry. Let's get started with the JS is about to get way faster. Convex's sync is not based on Replicache. They built their own crazy Rust thing. It's fully open source too. Anyways. JavaScript is slow. Okay, it's not as slow as everyone likes to say. I know it's the meme to just make fun of JavaScript for being a terrible language, but it's not that bad. That said, there are a lot of things that could make it way better. One of those things just got announced by the V8 team, and that thing is a comment. Yes, a comment that can make your code 10 times faster. What the hell is going on here? We need to dive in because I am so excited for explicit compile hints making their way to JavaScript finally. I didn't think we'd ever see the day. This is such a implementation detail type thing, but the more I see the work V8 is doing, the more it makes sense that they're enabling these things. Not because an individual developer building an application is going to use them, but frameworks and the tools that we build that more deeply understand the browser can take a ton of advantage of them. There's been a lot of collaboration between the V8 team and framework authors like the React team in order to add features to make these frameworks and these tools we build with more performant and better. And this is one of those, and the potential is absolutely insane. That all said, neither the React team nor the V8 team are paying me, so we need to make our money somehow. Quick word from today's sponsor, then we're diving right in. Cool. Giving V8 a heads up. Getting JavaScript running fast is key for responsive web apps. Getting JavaScript running fast is key for a responsive web app. Even with V8's advanced optimizations, parsing and compiling critical JS during startup can still create performance bottlenecks. Knowing which JS functions to compile during the initial script compilation can speed up web page loading. There's the key. When you give V8 a pile of JavaScript, it has to parse all of it, compile all of the functions and whatnot in it, and get those ready before it can start executing code. Even if you're only using 1/10 of the functions that have been imported through that JavaScript file, it doesn't matter. They're all there. They all have to be compiled before any of the code can run. That's what makes this fun. When processing a script, V8 has to choose for each function. Should it compile it immediately or defer? If a function hasn't been compiled is later called, V8 must then compile it on demand. If a JS function ends up being called during page load, compiling it eagerly is beneficial because during the initial processing of the script, we need to do at least a lightweight parse to find the function end. In JS, finding the function end requires parsing the full syntax. There are no shortcuts that they could use with things like curly braces because JavaScript's a complex language. You can do a lot of different things. There is no simple way for us to figure out where a function actually ends. So they have to parse the full function in order to fix that. And they also have to, after deciding if they want to compile it eagerly, do that on a background thread, even though parts are interleaved with loading the script from the network. If they were to instead compile the function only on call, it's now too late to parallelize the work since the main thread is locked waiting for that function to exist. Just because the function's in your code doesn't mean you can call the function yet, because JavaScript does so much to take our crappy syntax and turn that into performant things running on our machines. And if it hasn't optimized the function you're trying to call, it can't parallelize it when you're calling it. It has to block until it's been optimized. Ooh, you have a competitor in chat. Oh, good luck with that. You know what happened to Open Web UI? I almost made a post. I was thinking even doing a video on it. Open Web UI changed licenses 4 months ago. It is no longer MIT licensed. So you're likely in violation of the license. Good luck. Have fun with that. That's why I wrote my own. Anyways. You have an agreement with Tim. Good luck. Anyways. Many web pages would benefit from selecting the correct function for eager compilation. For example, in our experiment with popular web pages, 17 out of 20 showed improvements, and the average foreground parse and compilation time was reduced by over half a second. 630 ms is insane. The feature is called explicit compile hints. It allows devs to control which JavaScript files and functions are compiled eagerly. Chrome 136 is now shipping a version of this where you can select individual files for eager compilation. The version is particularly useful if you have a core file, which you can select for eager compilation, or if you're able to move code between source files to create such a core file. So you add this magic comment in the file, // all functions called on load. As long as you put this at the top of the file, that file will now be prioritized when you load the script. Here's an example of script 1, script 2. Script 1 has this. Script 2 has the all functions called on load. And when you look at the logs, when you navigate to the test page, you'll see that the full parse happens for test func 1 before we even get to test func 2. Since test func 1 was compiled lazily, we see the parse function event when it's eventually called. Interesting. So the difference here is that test func 2 skips straight to full parse. We don't see a corresponding event since the compilant forced it to be parsed and compiled eagerly. Okay, that makes more sense. So here, test func 1 goes through multiple different steps where we have to pre-parse, then full parse, then parse the function, then interpret it. With test func 2, with that comment, it's an immediate full parse and interpretation, and then the interpreter can run it. It skips meaningful numbers of steps here, which is pretty cool to see if you want to prioritize certain things. What this is reminding me of is a certain framework I haven't talked about in a minute. Quick. If you're not familiar with how Quick works, it was built by the guy who made Angular, almost as like an apology for what he did with Angular to an extent. It's like as opposite as possible to what Angular did. The main thing Quick wanted to focus on was resumability. I guess it's Excalidraw time. I thought I might be able to go without Excalidraw for this one. I was wrong. We need to think about page loads. So a user, I guess horizontal might make more sense for this. So a user goes to a web page. We'll say we go to test.com. So the user loads test.com. I guess actually the vertical makes more sense. I want to have multiple layers. So we have the user, I guess we'll say browser. And we have the server. So the browser navigates to test.com. The server responds with HTML for that page. The HTML includes in it some things that we want. So over here, we will parse it. I guess I'll draw an arrow for this. Parse HTML, find script tags. So we parse the HTML and we find all of these script tags on it. And we have to go request those. So we'll say we request script 1.js, script 2.js, etc. And now all of these scripts come back down. It is worth noting that in this time, whatever's in the HTML file is being shown to the user. So if we have a web page that just looks like this, and on this page we have a button, it's a counter. And on click, we want the counter to go up. So the HTML we got has all of this in it. The problem is the HTML doesn't have the JavaScript to trigger this. That's in a different file that's tagged. So now when the user clicks, if they click before the JS has loaded in, nothing happens because the JavaScript that describes what this button does and how to update the DOM when that happens isn't there. So the click event goes nowhere. So now imagine that these scripts are pretty large. We send down the .js files, and now the browser needs to parse those files and do something with them. I'll copy paste my wonderful arrow here. Parse and compile JS. Then run the JS to bind to DOM. Up until these JS files have been parsed, compiled, and run, the web page is not interactive. So in the time from when we load the HTML file to the point where all of that is completed, this whole window here interactions don't work for. So once the HTML loads, even if it shows the right content, we have to wait for the JS to be parsed out of the HTML, fetched from the server, downloaded, parsed again, compiled, run, and bound to the DOM. Then the click actions will start to work. The goal of Quick was to compress this a bunch, especially if you have a ton of script tags. What if we didn't send this all down as these giant individual scripts? What if we inlined a little bit of JS in the HTML to describe basic interactions, or at the very least, queue up events, so once the JS is loaded in, the event can be fired? That's how React works right now. If you load a React page before the JS has been fetched from the server, it will cache events. And then once you have the full JS, it will replay those events against the virtual DOM to get the right result out. Quick handles this by embedding state into the HTML. They actually have a whole syntax for it. And I find the Quick 2 announcement. The way Quick worked before is this weird HTML syntax for comments that would tell inline JavaScript, or very short bits of JavaScript like tagged out here, how to interface with the different things in the UI. It's almost like a hibernate, so to speak, where it, instead of having to rerun all the JavaScript to recreate the DOM to rebind to it, this describes to a smaller set of JavaScript what element is attached to what thing, so that it can update this number here. The T8 thing surrounding it is basically a syntax to tell the Quick framework, this is this identifier. If you want to update the number, you have to update the thing between these comments. It's a weird syntax. They tried to squash it down with Quick 2.0. Do they have examples in here of what they did instead? I thought they did. Oh, is it just this? Yeah, they put in the elements here the description of what is where instead, as a way to make this more maintainable. It's an interesting choice. The point I'm making here is that all these decisions were made in order for Quick to get to resume state on the client with interactivity as quickly as possible. That's why it's named Quick. The whole point of the framework is to go from page loaded to interactions work as quickly as possible. And this mattered a lot, especially for websites with absurd amounts of JavaScript on them, because if you have some JavaScript that's meant to queue events, but you have other JavaScript that's way heavier, all of it has to be compiled before it can run. If I can now have one file that has that comment on top, guaranteeing it will exist as quickly as possible, that on page load it'll effectively be instant compiled and ready to go, I can effectively DIY Quick's interactivity into any other tool or framework. And what I've seen from the React team is they're kind of leaning into this way of thinking now, where some features make a lot of sense to build into the framework. Things like hooks obviously belong inside of React. Things like server components largely belong inside of the framework. Some other things, though, like how do you animate an element when it's removed from the DOM, that's not something that the framework should have to do. Some frameworks have tried to figure this out, but the problem is there is no primitive in the browser for when something is removed. You have one for add. You can fade in things. You can do animations when things appear. When something is removed from the DOM, there isn't really an event for that, and the element is gone. You can't CSS or style an element that's not there anymore. The React team could have put a lot of time trying to hack around that, but instead, they waited for view transitions to happen. View transitions are a browser standard that is focused on making it easier to transition elements both between pages during navigation and in and out on the browser in a given window when elements are added and removed. I did a whole video recently breaking down all the cool new things coming to React, and most of it was the view transition stuff, because now they can build a component that you wrap an element with, and it will automatically animate in and out when you remove it from the DOM, because view transitions are a browser standard that solved that problem, because the problem lived in the browser. This is similar. Could the React team have done something crazy with resumability similar to what Quick does? Probably. It would have been hellish, but they could have done it. Instead, I am almost positive they nudged the V8 and Chrome teams to figure out how to do a better experience in the browser for prioritizing different scripts so they'd be able to load in the interactive parts as quickly as possible and have the rest come in later. It makes so much sense, and I'm really pumped to see this making it to the browser. This will make everything potentially faster. And frameworks like Next.js will be able to take advantage of this to make your apps get to that interactive moment much faster. Time to interactive is a tough metric to crack, and this is going to help a ton with it. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about compile hints. Compiler hints aren't a particularly new thing either. If you want to know a bit more about all this, I did a video I was really proud of. CPUs. I finally know how CPUs work. This is with Casey Muratori, who comes from the game dev world, absolutely schooling me on microarchitecture and like CPU stuff. One of the things that processors do in order to execute more quickly is guess which path is most likely to be taken. Because a given CPU cycle isn't just doing one thing, it's doing a lot. And if you have a function that switches on an integer and it has different cases it can go down, the compiler what will end up happening is the scheduler on the processor will predict which paths it thinks are most likely. Excuse me. I need to clear my throat 1 sec. Imagine you're a processor and you're getting this function. Every time you take a step, you do as much work as you can in that step. So we know an integer was passed to f, and that this switch statement has to execute something. If we want to do as much work as possible during that step, we can guess which path we think is most likely and continue the compute through that step. If it turns out it's wrong, we can kill that tree and do it correctly on the next cycle. But if I, as the developer, know which of these paths is most likely, instead of letting the processor guess, I can tell it via a compiler hint, hey, this case is more likely to happen, so prioritize this one. The other can happen still, so don't guarantee this path. This isn't hard coding it to case 2 always happens. This is at an architecture level, optimized for this being the case. And if it isn't, we can interrupt. It's a very small micro optimization, but these optimizations at like CPU level matter a ton. And compiler hints have become essential in application development, especially lower level stuff, to maximize the performance we can get from these things. Yeah. It is worth noting that pretty much everyone says do not know these unless you It's worth noting that basically everyone says don't use these unless you know what you're actually doing, like very well. And I agree. Compilers are very good at spitting out optimized code, including the compiler built into the browser with V8. V8 is a phenomenal engine, and it can do things that are hard to fathom. It's so fast at so much shit. This isn't for us to use as application devs. I will probably never write that line. It's very unlikely I'll ever write something that needs to use this all functions called on load. But Next.js might, React might, Remix might, Svelte might. All these other tools we use might find good ways to use this to prioritize the right parts of our code as part of the compiler step. And that's what's so cool here. This will enable framework authors to get our apps to that first interactive moment much faster. And that's a great win for the web. More and more, I expect to see this to be the direction that teams like Chrome are moving in, because new browser features make way less sense. If they were to give us a new syntax for something like error handling or a new way to interface with arrays, our AI tools aren't going to know that those are there and how they work. And getting other browsers to adopt those things is also difficult. So I can't use the syntax because other browsers don't support it unless I polyfill it. And now if I'm polyfilling it, it doesn't even matter. Things like this are wins that my AI doesn't need to know about. My AI code tools, my recently onboarded team of JavaScript developers, none of these people need to know about the new features being added to Chrome that are enabling frameworks to be faster. More and more, there's like, if you think about code as like dev or app dev, app code, framework, you can kind of think of us as building on a stack like this. So I'm an app dev. I write app code. The app code works within a framework. The framework gets compiled, and the compiled code gets spit out to a runtime. Historically, we have focused a lot in like this world. How can frameworks improve our experience writing app code? How can we make better application software? How can we make new frameworks that make the app code part in particular easier to write? That part's gotten way too easy. Since we have AI that can generate a lot of the things in this range, we don't want things right below to change. If we were to change out the framework we use, everything above has to be replaced too. The app code has to be blown out. The app devs have to be onboarded for the new framework in order to write new code. So we are now more hesitant than ever to touch things from like here down. We effectively have drawn a line that is here, where if you are above this line, awesome, nothing is going to change. Or with this line, when you're above it, and if you're, retake on this bit, we've effectively drawn a line here now where everything above doesn't want to change anymore, because if it does, the tools we're using with like cursor and whatnot aren't going to catch up to those changes. So the question now is, given app code, if we take a given React application, what can we do to improve it? We could improve the framework so that the code can actually, or we can improve the framework so that the code comes out faster, or we can make optimizations within React to make our app code better. We can improve the compiler or even build new compilers that will take this framework code and spit out something more performant. We can work on the runtime in order to make it so the code that comes out can be run faster. Maybe we add new primitives in the runtime that the framework can use. But I think now more than ever, this area is where we're going to be seeing change. And the Google Chrome team and the web standards committees are going to be less focused on things we would write as developers in our app code and more focused on what happens down here instead. What's the name of the V8 schedule interruption thing they added for React? Scheduler yield. Thank you, guys. Thank you, chat, for reminding me what I was looking for here. A great example of this is scheduler.yield. Scheduler.yield is a feature that Chrome was effectively bullied into adding because the React team wanted it so bad. The role of scheduler.yield is interrupting your own work mid-action. So if we have an event listener here for a click, we show a spinner, we yield, then we do this other piece, the slow content swap. We want the spinner to show immediately. But if we were to just do the spinner, then do the content swap, we would have a problem because those, especially if this isn't async, those are going to happen at the same time. So the spinner won't ever be seen because the content swap that happens after will happen immediately as part of the same event. That sucks. And as such, what frameworks like React do, if they want to show you something immediately and then show you the rest later when it's done, or if they want to allow for a user typing on the keyboard to interrupt during a render, a lot of these frameworks have to do weird stuff where they make something synchronous async instead, await a random like no-op thing, or often they'll use a set timeout to 0. And the reason they do that is so they can chunk up the event queue. If you have events in the browser, we have our event queue, or event loop, I suppose. We have our event loop. The user clicked a button. So this is like the on-click triggered. The on-click has a bunch of stuff in it. It has those parts that we saw here. It has show spinner, which is fast. Let's make this code. So spinner, we'll say this takes 1 ms, but we also have slow paint, which takes 800 ms. Ideally, show spinner would be able to happen immediately, and slow paint would be able to queue separately. So we'd want to split these out into their own separate things on the queue. But the problem here is, but now imagine instead of on click, this is on change on an input. We have like a search box, the classic web page where the user is typing search query. And when you search, we update the content underneath. So we trigger this on change with cert with a C, but we didn't finish typing yet. And now imagine we had all of this in one event like we did originally, without any of the blocking and any of the other stuff. Then I add a new on change for the rest of this. Then I have to repaint all that again. Then a new event comes in with the space. You see the problem here is sticky keys. We've all had the problem where we're typing in an input on a web page, and every time we press a new key, it gets slower and slower until a bunch come in at once. That's because each key press is triggering something that is slow, and there's no opportunity to interrupt. The problem is, or the reason they added scheduler yield is the solution before was to put things at the end of the queue by using, how do I want to refer to this? They would use set timeout to call the slow paint. But when they called it that way, it would become a new event, and not just an event that goes immediately after. It would get added to the end of the queue. So you'd have to process everything else that's currently pending in order to flush the queue. What the React team wanted was the ability to, in the middle of this event where you have two things, you have something fast and something slow. So we have the slow part, is 800 ms. The React team wanted the ability to, between these, effectively check and ask, hey, is there anything more important? So they wanted to run the fast part, check if there's other things it should do instead, then do the slow part. That way, if there is something more important, it can just kill the slow part entirely, never run it, and put the more important thing on top instead. The ability to interrupt a given task without giving up your position in the queue is the magic of yield. It is telling the browser, hey, stop here. If there's more important work, do that instead. But if there isn't, don't interrupt me. Let me continue doing what I'm doing. Sadly, despite this being, 3+ years ago, yield still hasn't made it into most browsers. It is in Chrome. Thankfully, you can polyfill it with the set timeout behavior, but you don't get the same speed of processing that you do with yield. It allows for not you and me, but for framework authors to make decisions about what happens in the browser. So if you have, again, this search query, you would want, whenever I am typing, to always immediately update the content of that input box. You always want to have that as up to date as possible. And if you have stale results showing, that's fine. Who cares? Don't re-render a giant field underneath on every key press if another key press comes in. Okay, apparently the Firefox Nightly now has scheduler yield, but Safari still doesn't. So this is the reason I brought this whole example up isn't because everyone should know about this and use it. It's specifically because you don't need to care because it exists below this line. If you're not working on React Core or other frameworks that you're building yourself, these details don't matter that much. They're cool as hell to know. That's why you're watching this in the first place. I genuinely enjoy these things. But the point here is that innovation above the line is kind of over. I would not expect much more to happen up here because our tools have somewhat cemented what we have there. Similar to how roads aren't going to meaningfully improve or change the way they work on the streets because we have so many cars that expect them to work a certain way. A lot of our tools expect this to work a certain way now. That's fine. It means more innovation has to occur down here, and that's what we're seeing. The introduction of compiler hints in JS fits that perfectly. It allows for things under the hood, including framework authors and compilers, to spit out code that will run faster in our runtimes in the browser. I don't want to keep going this deep on weird browser stuff. I think I've made my point. Hopefully this helps you better understand why compiler hints are happening, why you shouldn't use them, and how our browsers and our code in the browser is going to keep improving over time. Curious what you guys think about this one. Was this useful to you, or is this entirely nonsense? Let me know, and until next time, peace, nerds. Also, great ender, fuck Safari. Yeah. Oh, Safari. Thanks for stopping by and saying the kind words. Happy you get to see the process as we do it. Also locked and coded with the tier 3 for 33 months. All the threes. Thank you so much for the support forever, man. Always appreciate it. Yeah, Canada Honk's a legend. Thank you so much for the help throughout. I almost called you in to help there, but I think I did a good enough job covering all this. Cool. Let me see how we're doing on time. Got a lot of email to reply to, but no one's harassing me just yet about config or Stripe session stuff. Okay, I just came up with branding for the payment stuff, and now I think we have to rush it out. Stripe made a crypto currency. That branding is too good. Okay, I might have misunderstood how they implemented this. Give me a sec. Regional. Add money to stablecoin balance. Okay, I think I have my path here for this one. Stripe, crypto, and more. Okay. What are all the things I want to cover for this? Because there's like a bunch of random shit. There is Stripe, MOR. There is. Let me go back to this. MOR stuff was really big. Reduced authorization boost. Stripes, grips. Interesting. Stripe, scripts, language. Okay, there's a stablecoin stuff. Fun. Bed finance. Instead of API signals and tools, make better fraud decisions. Money management. Let's make sure I got all of these linked up in order. Cool. I'm issuing. Put that up top. Scripts, crypto. Okay, I think I covered all the key parts here. Cool. I think that covers all the core things I need to talk about here. Let's do it. Let's do it. Marker, Stripe, crypto. Let's go straight to it. Cool. Yeah. I want to start this one. It feels like just yesterday I was doing a video about everything wrong with Stripe and how to build around it as a developer. Since then, the Stripe team has reached out to me and promised a lot of retake on this. Yeah. Okay, I have a better intro. Yes, you read the title right. Stripe is releasing their own stablecoin cryptocurrency. And not just that, believe it or not, they actually introduced a new programming language in here too, based on TypeScript, a new AI model that, while interesting, isn't going to be the focus, I promise, as well as a bunch of other really useful things about payment processing. It's rare I can so confidently say a video is essential viewing for startup people, but like if you're in any way managing the billing product that your company has, if you have any control over the Stripe links being sent to users, you want to watch this one. And for everybody else, if you're just curious what it looks like to manage money at scale, there's going to be a lot of fun to cover here. All of that said, as excited as I am to talk about the inner workings here, you guys probably know I'm deep here. I made an article or retake on the transition part. I've been through it with Stripe enough so that I published all of the things I think you should do when setting it up for your. I've been through it with Stripe probably more than most. I published all of the things I think about Stripe and how to work around them properly as a developer building web applications. Not only did they take that feedback incredibly well, they actually brought me in to give a presentation to the company, like the whole company. The CEO interviewed my CTO and me. It was awesome. And I got so much positive feedback from them. They've been working really hard to improve the platform. And even then, even with all this inside info, I had no idea any of this was going on. There's a little bit I did, but a lot that I didn't. There is so much to go into here, including the new recommended way I would tell you to use Stripe. If you want to hear about all of this, stick around. But Stripe isn't paying me. Well, technically, Stripe deposits into one of my bank accounts for my business, but that's not their money. It's other people's money. And we need more of that before we can go. So quick word from today's sponsor, then we'll dive right in. Let's take a look. This was a bit of a crazy Stripe Sessions. If you're not familiar, Stripe Sessions is the event that Stripe hosts every year to talk about all the things they're doing. This Stripe session was a little interesting because all of the platinum sponsors, sorry, not platinum, diamond, all of their top tier sponsors are competitors. I thought that was fascinating. That's how confident Stripe is in their position in the market. But there's more nuance here than I am implying. We will be getting there soon. And apparently a product manager replied. I didn't even see this. So Amazon Pay and Klarna are businesses they work with, but Freedom Pay is a competitor. And Klarna wasn't a business that they worked with until very recently. That's one of the reveals here. But yeah, still kind of wild. Regardless, I appreciate the clarification. Anyways, what are we going through here? They talk about the model stuff. The TLDR on their AI model is that it's for detecting fraud. Great. Detecting fraud is an unsolved problem. The more they can help there, the better. I'm happy to give them a bigger percentage if it means we don't get as many chargebacks. But there's a lot of other stuff going on here that we need to talk about. The one I am most excited for by far is managed payments. Managed payments is their version of MOR, which stands for Merchant of Record. If you're not familiar with Merchant of Record, I'm going to do my best job to break it down quick. The example that I think will make more sense is EOR, which is Employer of Record. If I am your employer and I am based out of California, but you're based out of a different state, like, I don't know, Idaho, I cannot employ you at my California company. Technically speaking, I need to have a business arm incorporated in your state in order to employ you. I don't need to have an office there. I don't need to have presence there. I just need to have a corporation or a corporate entity in that state in order to employ you. When we're talking about different states within the United States, it's annoying but doable. We have arms of, or we have, there. When I had more employees at T3 Chat and Ping, we had these little like companies that we had incorporated in these different states in order to employ our employees across the country. Annoying, but absolutely doable. I ended up discovering this concept of an employer of record because a certain YC company was actually really cool. This is Deal. They're in some drama right now. I'm not interested in talking about it just yet, but Deal is employer of record as a service. So what Deal has done is they went to every state in the US and every country that you would reasonably want to employ somebody in as a startup in the United States and incorporated in all of those places. So now, if I want to employ somebody, I don't have to incorporate in all the places that those employees might be. Instead, technically speaking, they're employed by Deal. So in a traditional employee-employer relationship, if I have like the company and I have my little employees all over wherever, and each of these employees was in a different state, then my company would have to have a mini company for each of those states. And I am effectively the owner of this business, which is the one that the employee works for. The thing that is different with employer of record is that instead of me having all of those small companies myself, we have a separate company in between that handles all of that for us. And now all of the employees technically work for Deal instead. So when I was using Deal for employing some of our remote employees, they would get a paycheck from Deal. Their healthcare benefits came from Deal. All of the things that they would expect for being an employee, like their dashboard that keeps track of their payments and their like salary, when I give them a raise, it goes through that. Deal is technically their employer, and I am contracting Deal to let that person do work for me. This seems chaotic, but it makes life significantly easier, in particular with compliance across many different countries. Like if I had we had an employee out of Canada for a bit, and this was so much easier than dealing with all the hoops to jump through in order to have a business in Canada. So why are we talking about this? Let's go back to Merchant of Record. I'm going to keep this diagram a bit, but all of these are, instead of businesses, think of all these dots not as employees, but now as customers. So you're a customer and you want to subscribe to T3 Chat. So you go to our website, you click the Stripe checkout link. Now you are on our payment processing through Stripe. And when you make the payment, you'll get a little thing in your credit card invoicing. So like your credit card statement is going to have all the purchases you made. You might have YouTube Premium, which is $15, but it will say like Google or whatever like that. You might have PayPal Twitch sub for $6, and you'll get all of these. For T3 Chat, you'll get, I think it'll be T3 Tools, T3 Chat sub, $5. Because all Stripe is doing is processing the payment. They take your credit card number, they make sure with the issuer that you are authorized to make a transaction like this, and then they put it in an account that Stripe is managing to pay out to me. But the payment processing is all Stripe is doing. They are using that credit card to transact and get money out of it. But that transaction is still owned by me, the company, which means if there are any tax issues or compliance issues or regulations and all of that shit, that's all my problem. If I go over a threshold for taxes in Europe, that is my problem to figure out. If I want to put the right sales tax for every different state and every different country that somebody could subscribe from into my product, that's my problem because I am the merchant. You are buying from me. The money is going to me. Do you see where we're going? Merchant of record is very similar to what I just described with deal and employer of record. This is Stripe MOR. So now, instead of your payment going straight to me, it goes to the Stripe MOR. Stripe has already incorporated in pretty much every country and state you would need to. They've already figured out tax compliance in all of those places. The difference that a customer will see is instead of this saying T3 Tools, it's going to look more like the PayPal one. It's going to say Stripe and then specify more info because the payment isn't going directly to us. The payment is now going to Stripe instead, which means with that, all of the compliance, all of the liability, all of the fighting around chargebacks, all of the pain that you have to deal with that we have spent way too much time fighting for T3 Chat and for all the stuff that I've built effectively goes away. This doesn't make it easier to write the code or anything. This makes it way easier to stay in compliance and manage all of the annoying things that happen once you've built the product and you're fighting everything from fraud to tax. This benefits much more once you've shipped the product, you have people paying for it, and you're fighting everything from disputes to scams to weird tax compliance laws in countries you don't even know how to pronounce the names of. Totally not speaking from experience here. I'm in hell right now, guys, okay? I really wanted this to exist. There was one other popular merchant of record that's worth talking about here. Lemon Squeezy. Lemon Squeezy was a startup focused on providing a good dashboard, SDK, and all the pieces you need to make a payment go through in your app. They were built on top of Stripe, but they were a merchant of record as well. Lemon Squeezy got acquired by Stripe, and the CEO, JR, has been working incredibly hard to make this product happen. It's been his sole focus effectively since the acquisition occurred. And they did it. The Stripe merchant of record that they refer to as managed payments is now in a private preview. They will manage global tax, fraud prevention, disputes, fulfillment, and even support for transactions. So if a customer had their credit card get stolen and money was spent on your service, they don't have to contact your support anymore. They can go straight to Stripe. A merchant of record is the legal entity responsible for facilitating the sale of products to a customer and for following applicable local laws and regulations. When you act as your own merchant of record, you're responsible for registering for and remitting tax to local authorities, accepting payments, handling fraud and disputes, order fulfillment, and customer support for transactions. There is now a product that does all of this for you. If you look at the gap here, we have the managed payments versus other Stripe products. Merchant of record Stripe versus your business, global tax management, they'll do for you versus you have to set up the tax compliance yourself. You can only use the checkout page versus all the other fun things that they offer, but honestly, checkout page is really nice. It's what we use for everything. Subscriptions, all handled. Fraud, handled for you. Disputes for you. Order management and support, handled for you. You get the idea. They'll also be offering a migration from Lemon Squeezy to Stripe Payment, or they'll also be offering the ability to migrate from Lemon Squeezy to managed payments, which is really nice for people who are still on Lemon Squeezy. I've been hearing some I hate to talk any shit on JR because he's been so awesome to work with, but I have heard a lot of customers that were on Lemon Squeezy that are suffering because the product's been slowly falling apart. Managed payments is absolutely meant to kill Lemon Squeezy. So it's nice that they're offering a path out for all the people who are still using it. That's a huge win. That's the managed payments part. If you're a startup and you can get into this private preview, I would recommend it because you don't want to deal with these things later. So the sooner you can have it managed, the less stress you'll have to feel. I am considering making the move myself. Now for the fun things that a lot of you are still watching for. Stripe's programming language, as well as their cryptocurrency. Stripe scripts is a really interesting new piece of what they announced. Program your business logic directly in Stripe with scripts. They say it's TypeScript, but they then immediately call out it's a subset of TypeScript. It is a custom language that they built. It maintains a lot of TypeScript features, but it has key differences, including a more restrictive set of allowed operations. Which means they probably built their own runtime too. Still has functions and all of the core stuff. It seems like the type system is more the focus though. So let's go into how this is used. An example they give, or using a subset of TypeScript, you can write and submit custom logic in Stripe. With scripts, you can define your own logic for specific Stripe objects, tailor your Stripe account for your specific business needs, and extend Stripe beyond its standard functionality. An example they give is you can use a custom discount like logic chunk on a new coupon so that different customers can have the coupon apply in different ways. That requires me to sign in. That's annoying. Start custom logic part. Functions can take in two things that are defined by the author, as well as things that are defined by Stripe. So here is an example they give where we have a script configuration, has max discount amount and a discount percentage. The SDK provides built-in types that you can use as part of your configuration definition. So here's a type they have where max discount has to be a positive amount, and discount percent has to be a percent. Now you can define something this is a 50% off, but it's only 50% off up to a certain amount of money. You can define this type and then implement the logic for a coupon. So now I can make a 50% off coupon that will only go up to a certain amount of money with custom logic, which wasn't particularly viable before. This is a huge win. That would have been previously like you would have implemented your own coupon logic in your JavaScript, in your application, probably on the server side, in order to create different coupons dynamically to apply for these different cases. And it would be theoretically possible for somebody to grab the coupon code and apply it to a different invoice instead and screw you over if you don't put the right assertions everywhere. This is a huge win to be able to define that in logic that lives on Stripe's side so you can give a coupon code to whoever and know that you won't lose a ton of money in the process. That's just one example they have here too. Test against your sandbox. And here's how you would use that script. This is an example of a 20% off coupon up to $100. And we are calling the Stripe API. We are identifying the script that we want this to use in its creation of the coupon. We are configuring it to have up to $100 off, which this is in this is including cents. So this is 100,000, or this is 10,000 cents, which is $100. USD is the amount, and then the discount percent of 20. These are all variables that we have passed in our calling of the Stripe API. You can even see what this looks like in other languages like Node, JavaScript. They always call it Node because they want you running it on client. They want to be clear there. The Stripe coupon create, duration, name, script. Identify the script and then pass it configuration values. Pretty cool. And here is the actual script that you would write in TypeScript. Percentage off up to max discount. You have the generic types here for the return. Input types, discount results, the response. We grab the values from the config. We have discount amount. If item gross amount currency lowercase trim is the same as the max discount amount, discount amount value, percent, 100. Does this code actually do what it says it's doing? If it's checking the equality of the gross amount. Oh, it's the check if the currency is the same. Okay. So we're checking if the currency is the same between what we passed and what the checkout is about to be. We then run the discount code. So we take the discount percentage. We now have a discount amount value. And then the actual amount is set to be the minimum between the amount value and the max. And then we return it. Awesome. That's actually really convenient. I see how we will be using this already. This will be super nice. I need to stop dancing around it. We need to talk about Stripe Crypto. This might look like it's just for adding Stripe Crypto. This might initially look like it's just for them to let you take crypto payments, but this goes much deeper. This goes significantly deeper because of the stablecoin bit. And also because of Bridge, which is a company that Stripe owns. I don't know if they acquired them or if they incubated and started them. But the point here is to make money transfer easier, regardless of the currency the money started in. Because it's quite annoying to have to transition money between USD, euros, and all the other currencies your users might have money in. Multi-currency management is not a fun problem at all. And it's really awesome to see Stripe taking it seriously. And it's honestly one of the few applications of crypto I've seen that I vibe with like at all. I see a lot of potential to using stable coins specifically for this. Yeah. If you're not familiar with what stablecoins are, the point is that it's not a traditional crypto where the value goes up and down randomly based on how the market feels about it. This isn't Ethereum or Bitcoin where your money will vanish and then reappear in a day. But it is still crypto where when you send it, you can't charge it back, which obviously helps with a lot of things. And it also means that there are very low, if any, transaction fees at all, especially when you're like trying to send money over borders. If I want to send you $100 and you're in a different region, we have to eat a lot of different things as I send you that money. But if I send you 100 stable coins, you can choose how you convert that on your end yourself. The way that Stripe has these implemented is, as I mentioned before, through Bridge. The stable coins in your account on Stripe are going to be a new crypto called USDB, which is issued by Bridge. It's the USD Bridge stablecoin. USDB is a closed loop stablecoin, which means it's not available for public sale, but it's pegged to the US dollar. Do they have the, here's the bit, yeah. USDB is an infrastructure stablecoin issued by Bridge. It's always backed one-to-one by the equivalent value of US dollars held in cash and short-duration money market funds at BlackRock. So when you have money in USDB, there are real dollars that mirror that money. That is a very nice thing, so you don't have to worry about the crypto going to zero. And since this is backed by Stripe, not by a crypto company, the coin is much less likely to go to zero. This is an actual useful implementation of crypto for business like account management, unlike anything I've seen before, especially when you realize that they're doing this at the same time as their new tooling around multi-currency management. Yeah. The new money management stuff lets you hold money in different currencies. If all of this money is just stable coins under the hood, switching it between the different currencies and between different accounts is way easier, especially when you combine that with their new credit card product. Yes, you can now get a credit card through Stripe that spends your USDB balance. And when you use that card, you don't have to deposit the money from Stripe to your bank account. Credit for this idea goes to an interesting place, Levels.io, who called out the guy I mentioned before, JR, because he was talking about how excited he was to build product for startups at Stripe. And as somebody who's talked to him a ton, I can confirm he's very much dedicated to doing this. It's the thing he wants to do, and he's loving it. Level said that he wants to pay his bills with Stripe. He has a bunch of money sitting in Stripe at any given time. And instead of having to do the back and forth going from Stripe to your bank to wherever else you want to pay, which is a lot of back and forth, if he can just use a credit card that has a Stripe balance attached to it and can spend from that directly, he never needs to move the money out, or he can move it when it hits certain thresholds. It makes life significantly easier when you constantly have money in Stripe. It just means less money moving around constantly. Like, it's so silly that for something like us with T3 Chat, you pay us, the money goes to Stripe, we have it automatically move the money from Stripe to our bank account, which takes 3 to 15 days. Then I send that same money back to Stripe, but this time for Anthropic or OpenAI, in order to pay for the credits for all the AI stuff that you as the user were using that put the money in Stripe. There's just so many back and forths that don't need to happen. If it could just stay in Stripe and I use the card to pay another company that's using Stripe as well, the money's just transferring between different Stripe accounts. That makes life much easier. This is a really cool win. And I could very much see us using Stripe's cards to zero transaction fees, pass money between different Stripe accounts with different products that we are using for our business. I've also seen a lot of issues that people like Levels have had trying to withdraw from Stripe to banks in a lot of different countries. So if he could use the card to spend money from Stripe without having to fight them to open up a bank account in Portugal or Estonia and get the money deposited there, this will make his life significantly easier. And for foreign founders in particular, this seems like a very, very big win, especially alongside the merchant of record stuff. So as crazy as it sounds, I am actually in favor of Stripe introducing cryptocurrencies. Not because I want people to pay me in crypto, but because it's a very useful primitive for them to have implemented behind the scenes as the way money is being passed around between things. It makes a ton of sense. Anything else in here? That's a big deal. Okay. Most of y'all won't care about this part, but those who do, this is huge. They're adding Klarna to Stripe Link. Klarna is a really big payment processing group, especially for European payments. Klarna is incredibly popular in Europe, and right now is one of the most common requests we get for T3 Chat. People want to pay using Klarna because it's the thing they are used to using in those regions. They also have a buy now, pay later like credit thing too, but that's not what I care about with Klarna. What I care about is that Europeans seem to like paying for things with Klarna. And having support for that in Stripe is pretty cool. I think you can do it without the loan stuff. It seems like from how people are asking for the product that they don't want it just for the flexible payment thing. They want it because it's their payment processor of choice. But there's also Zola and a few others too. Regardless, anything that makes it easier for European customers to pay for stuff on our services is a good win. So I'm excited about that one. I don't think I have anything else to say here on Stripe. I am curious how you guys feel about this video, though, more than usual, because I don't normally go this deep on entirely business implementation detail stuff. Did you make it to the end? Did you enjoy what I had to say? Are you curious about the other interesting payment stuff going on, both with Polar and their partnership with BetterOff, or with Clerk adding in payments as part of their product? There's a lot going on in the payment world right now, which is crazy because it's been pretty stationary for a while. Now, things are shaking up quickly, and I'm excited that payments are finally going to start improving once again. Let me know what you guys think, and until next time, peace, nerds. Cool. Thank you, Zevia. I'm working my hardest. There's a lot of shit here we need to get fixed, so I'm doing my best to help with it. Oh shit, I missed the gift bomb from TSW. Thank you so much for throwing us the 5 bomb there. Really appreciate that. I also got Loki here with the Prime and Rudo. Good to see you, man. 24 months in, 30 total. Jesus Christ. Y'all been around forever. Oh, is the slash clip endpoint broken? Rip. Let me just grab this link for the source. Cool. I've covered everything I need to today, I think. I'm sorry to hear about that. If I had the same thing happen to me, and before I could even complain, they emailed me saying, hey, sorry, saw this happened. We just fixed it. Surprised I still have any customers. I thought they had fixed that fully. I'll annoy my contact there about this. I'm going to take a screenshot so I don't forget to do that. Cool. I think that's everything I needed to cover immediately. See how bad we're doing on people requesting my attention and shit. Not too terribly, but I do need to get ready to go to some stuff in the city, so I should start wrapping up. I almost certainly need to make some, like, shit this coming weekend because we're only doing 4 videos a stream lately, and our content calendar is no longer as absurdly well stocked as it was prior. So we'll likely be live this weekend. Keep an eye out. Do my best. But I need to run. Let's figure out who we're raiding. More context on the billing stuff. Let's see. This quick. Yeah, Clerk not doing MOR is weird. Let's figure out who we're raiding. Let's find someone fun and new in software. Oh, here's someone new. Not familiar with her. Let's throw you guys there. Non-codes. Have fun with Non. Hopefully see you guys later. Thank you as always for the fun stream. I don't miss any other subs. Cool, we're good. Have fun, y'all. Sorry for the short one. I had a lot to do. Oh, thank you, Sipo, for the sub right as we're wrapping up. Goodbye, y'all. And goodbye to YouTube as well.